Right, good evening, everyone. Seem to have lost the screen there, but here we go. This time I'd like to call our meeting to order. And if you all could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me do this here. It's easier to read. Okay. Sorry about that. First of all, the purpose of this meeting is for the board to conduct board business. This meeting is open to the public and is recorded. You can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through our district website. This meeting is being presented via Zoom. It is not appropriate for audience members to interrupt board business to ask questions during the meeting. A portion of this meeting is reserved for public comments. Board members will not engage in discussion or debate with members of the public. The superintendent may provide information if appropriate. The board chair acknowledges input received and may, if needed, ask the board superintendent to look into the matter and report back to the board. If you have any concerns about individual district employees or specific complaints that require administrative response, please contact the office of the superintendent. And when we go to live virtual comment, please raise your hand and you will be unmuted when it's your turn to speak. We will do our best to call on you in the order you raised your hand. Commenters will be allowed audio privileges only. Please state your name and address. Commenters who violate the guidelines below may have their speaking privileges removed. Agenda items will be addressed as listed in the agenda, and virtual participants, please mute your mic and disable your videos. And Director Jeffries, could you read our vision and mission statement today, please?
You bet. Our vision statement, our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. And our mission, in connection with our community, the Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so each student thrives.
Thank you. Director Koo, could you read the acknowledgement of the land we stand on?
You bet. I just found the unmute button. The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While the S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam tribal governments: the Lower Elwha S'Klallam tribe, the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe, and the Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
All right, thank you. Okay, first up on our agenda, we have a conversation regarding redistricting.
Hello there, I'm Bob Schweitzer. I'm with Sammamish Data Systems.
Welcome, Bob. Thank you.
So every 10 years, the state and Fed require that all the special purpose districts review their population counts versus the new, the current decennial census. It came out very late this year, but it did eventually come out. As part of that, I have completed the review of your existing 3 director districts. Your 2 that are at large are imbalanced. It's impossible to have them out of balance. The three with territory, does seem that there has been a bit of growth in the school district. Let me pull up the exact amount. Oh, that's not it. The Sequim School District went from, oh, let's see, SQ. For the strangest reason, I cannot, okay, there it is, in 2010, the Census Bureau had you guys listed at 29,342 people. They now say that you are 33,260. That is a change of almost 4,000 people at 3,918. So that's a good little bump of people. Within your three districts, the first grew a little bit, but is lagging behind at negative 207 people from perfect parity. Second is a little bit further behind at a negative 219 people, with the third being the one with the absolute most amount of growth at being overpopulation by 425 people. Luckily in your particular school district, you don't have any prisons or inmates to worry about, so we didn't have to take that into consideration. Not always is there a perfect match when importing director districts from one delennial census into another delennial census's geography. Specifically with the 2020 geography, they actually reduced the polygon count throughout the entire nation dramatically. And in some locales, they've consolidated multiple census blocks into single blocks. And that does end up being problematic in those cases where the old boundary line that they've removed was a director district boundary. On page 4 of your report that I had provided to you, there's a red line that marks where the actual boundary went in 2010. That entire area of the waterfront is now all one census block. And so that little bit of the district number 2 that's been assigned to the left side of the red line is, parts of the second district that are not actually part of the second district. I don't believe there are any homes, or if there are, it has very little overall effect with the report. This may just, mean that there's a few people in between the first and second district that are just slightly misassigned. That doesn't explain or deal with the fact that the third district is greatly over in population over the other two at a plus 425 people, nearly a 4% deviation. So that little disparity doesn't change the overall impact of my report saying that your 3 director districts are a bit out of balance. Not too bad, but there are definitely places I'm sure we can find to adjust those lines accordingly while performing minimal change and keeping the same overall look and feel of your existing director districts. Are there any questions with all that wonderful information I just provided?
So Bob, just one real quick before I see if any of the other board members have anything. I guess one question is something, a topic that we have talked about occasionally in the past is what the, I guess, potential implications if we went to a all at large set of district area instead of having the 3 districts plus the 2 at large.
Well, that's not allowed. I'm not a lawyer, and I cannot give you legal advice, but to my knowledge, the absolute minimum number of director districts that they allow are what you're at currently. You can have 1 director district at large, and you can also choose to have no director districts at large, but there is no way to go from having 2 at large to having more than what you have at large.
Okay.
So I could potentially find you the RCWs that cover that. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head.
That's okay. I'm sure we can look at that at some point. Thanks. Director Koo.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Bob, this is great. Thank you. And I've spent too much time looking at your map, so it's a pleasure to meet the man behind the curtain. So thanks for being here tonight. I understood it, and you're the professional here, so this is not me pushing back, but I believe Port Townsend had gone to all at-large positions, but I don't know if they were successful. So I appreciate your comments, and with the caveat of not being legal advice. The one question I had, and it is so selfishly motivated, but I think it may benefit others, is it possible to get, I don't know, is it KML files, the overlay for like an interactive Google map for folks to look up? I know every time it comes up in elections, and if my board members are similar, my colleagues are similar to me, you know, there's often an outreach effort to people to encourage them to run for the board and things like that. And so the question always comes up, you know, which district are you in? And it's not always easy as, it sometimes is, but not always as easy as looking at static images. Is that a possibility?
Sure.
Okay. I will punt to staff on whether or not to see that through. That's just a selfish me ask, but it may also benefit others.
Thanks. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I was just curious. I think I'm wondering if it's just that maybe perhaps we're using the wrong terminology when we're talking about it. You had mentioned that we could go to one overall district for the entire district. Does that mean that there wouldn't be any lines? I think that is that what possibly we might be asking? Maybe we're just asking it the wrong way.
Okay, what you have is 3 director districts with 2 director districts at large for a total of 5 directors. There are some school districts in the state of Washington that have more directors than 5. There are some school districts that have been grandfathered in with having 100% of their director districts at large. They are old school districts. There is, if Port Townsend has converted to 5 director districts all at large, they probably have done it illegally. There is no way that I know of to do it. It's specifically called out in the law that stipulates how many directors, what's the maximum number of director districts at large, and what is the minimum number of director districts with territory. And when it comes to school districts of your classification, you are already at the maximum number of director districts at large. Does that clarify what you asked?
I think so. Well, because I believe Port Angeles, just as a comparison, I think they're just one district, so it doesn't, Are you familiar with their area?
I have never worked with Port Angeles specifically. They could be one of the ones that are grandfathered in. Seattle School District, Vancouver School District, Yakima School District, Spokane School District. It's certainly very possible that Port Angeles is grandfathered in and an older school district like that. It is not possible to go to, once you've established territory, there's no way to go back to that. Or if you've never had it, there's no way to go to it that I know of. Again, the caveat is I'm not an attorney and I'm not giving you legal advice.
Sure. No, understand.
And that's not exactly my specialty either, although I have worked with school districts that have converted from 5 to 1 at large or to 2 at large. I help with making up the maps to do that. There is no school district that I know of with 3 at large or 4 at large. Although 4 at large would be basically all 5 at large.
Right, I was just thinking about that one actually. Yeah. So now it would be brief follow-up, but it is something that we would work with you on as to the best way to change those boundaries or where to draw it, that sort of thing. Is that something that you would provide a proposal for potentially, or?
Yes, the stage 2, this is just stage 1. Stage 2 is where I will take in the physical addresses for at least the board members that are the 3 that are of territory. I don't really care about the 2 at large because, well, as long as they're within the school district, they're in their director district. I will then go and look at taking as light a hand to the changes as possible to deal with the the adjustment of the population. Both the 1st and the 2nd district in your case needs to grow. So I probably would start with the 1st district. It is of course all dependent on the location of the board member of the 2nd district, but I would probably start with removing the bulge that's to the west of the river there, because the river is a really excellent boundary for the school district. So I definitely would not go out into the mountains and change that natural boundary that you have there. And then of course I would grow the 2nd district more towards the to Highway 101 from some direction. But again, minimal changes. In case the board has, board politics, I prefer not to know anything about that, and just simply make those adjustments in a vacuum from my end, and then present them. And then it's up to the board members to review that and look that over. Yeah, so as you can see on this map, the bulge that's on the left side of the river is the one I'm talking about, making that more yellow, less green. And then I'm not sure where the population works out in the moving of the 2nd into the 3rd. One of the reasons why I take board members' physical addresses into consideration is the 4th criterion that I go on, that I have for political redistricting, specifically states I am to neither favor nor disfavor a political party or a minority group. Each board member is a political party unto themselves. That you don't represent R's or D's. You can be whoever you want, but you are an individual political party. So by keeping each board member physically located in their director district, if at all possible, does not disfavor any political party within your school district. So that's the motto that I follow there. The first criterion, of course, is as equal a population as possible. The second criterion is to keep all of the director districts contiguous. So like putting the peninsula with the lighthouse into the 3rd district would not be warranted, because then that wouldn't be as contiguous of a director district as, and would just not seem very practical. Number 3 is to make the director districts as compact as possible. It doesn't mean to make them physically equal in land area. That has nothing to do with compactness. Compactness has everything to do with the overall shape of the director district. And your director districts are not that unusual in overall shape. So there isn't any real worry there for compactness. Number 4 is, I've already gone over it. And the last criterion is to, areas of common interest. I basically use that as my catch-all to say, limited amount of changes. We're not going to redraw completely from scratch. We're just going to make as few changes as needed to establish the as equal as possible in population.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Director Jeffries.
Push the buttons here. I did check with the school director over in Port Angeles. They have been a 1 district school board, even though there's position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are just designations for that particular run, but they have been 1 district forever, as far as the board member knew. So I think Director Pickens was probably right that they're just 1 district, but they've been that way since the start.
Yeah, and they would be grandfathered in that way.
As far as residency goes, let's see, right now, I represent District 1 and I live in District 1, and you're not going to be, I'm in the middle of District 1 to the west side, so I wouldn't be affected by any line changes. And District 3 director also lives in that area. We're going to have a new District 2 come in, and I think that person is probably located right in the middle of District 2. I'm not sure. So I think if we're going to do this, now is a good time, and it sounds like it'd be minimal changes. You would add a few more people to my district, and a few more people to the District 2, and take away some people from District 3, if I'm reading everything correctly.
Correct.
And like at the last meeting, I reminded people this is not school boundaries. This has nothing to do with which elementary school you go to.
Correct. This is not attendance zones. And
I just added my 2 cents. I don't really have a question.
Yeah, and it just has to do with residency of those 3 board members. The people who elect each board member is still the entire school district. So those who are in Director District 2 do not elect the representative for Director District 2. Every board member is still elected by the entire school district.
Okay. I think that might be it. Is anybody else that all we have from the board? All right, great. Bob, thanks for the work there and the presentation. And I guess we look forward to kind of step 2 and where these lines land.
Yeah, if the board wants me to move forward to step number 2, I just need to get an email from the superintendent or the secretary of the superintendent with those physical addresses, and I will be able to move forward and work up a proposed set of boundaries. Once I've submitted those proposed sets of boundaries, it's just a matter of the board to review them. If they want to move forward with formal adoption, I will need to know so that I can create the legal description that will accompany this. And then the board can have a regular board meeting, but it will need to be one with notice given at least a week in advance, and allow for the public to be able to comment. And after the comment period is over, the board can move to formally adopt.
Okay, let's see. I guess if we need to allow you to go move on to step 2, we should probably make that formal and vote on having you go to that next step.
Yeah, and I look forward to any emails or whatnot in the future.
So if we could maybe get a motion to allow Bob to move forward with redistricting lines for our further approval.
I'd be happy to move to approve as presented.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on that? Tracy, you want us to just do a verbal vote or you want to write that down?
I will go ahead and write that down. Thank you.
So we're going to do it on board docs?
No, we'll need to do it.
Okay. All right. We'll do. Okay. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Same sign. Okay. We'll move forward with that. Thanks, Bob.
Have a great day, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Next up, we have approval of our minutes. And while we're at this, actually, we have additional minutes from our October the 21st that were forwarded to us. We could want to move to add that to the minutes for approval.
I move we add the October 21st regular meeting minutes to the agenda for approval.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Prine, go ahead.
Yes, when you go to approve changes and additions and approval of the agenda, which is after the minutes, that's where you would put in the additional minutes.
Okay.
I removed my motion.
I was looking at the agenda like, we got to do that a little bit later. Okay, so let's go forth right now with our approval of our minutes for our October 18th and 26th. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve the 18th and the 26th
Thank you.
minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Okay, next up, we have any changes or additions to our agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
as I haven't had a chance to review those minutes that were sent via email yet. Would it be possible request that those, we were able to approve those at our next regular schedule meeting?
I would think that would be appropriate. We haven't had time since we got those today.
Okay.
So with that, we wouldn't need any motion to move that forward. We can just leave the agenda as it is.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign? Motion carry. Next up, we have our consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. A motion and a second to approve our consent agenda. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a hearty welcome to our new hires again. Just appreciate folks stepping in and helping with the district, and also internal personnel who are taking on new assignments.
All right, thank you. All right, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, next up, we have public comment. First, we'll take verbal public comment. So the board welcomes the opportunity to hear public comment and allows time for the purpose of each regular session to address the board. Please, at this point, raise your hand and you'll be called on in the order that we recognize, and on a different page, so I can't see those at this time. You'll have 3 minutes to, each individual has up to 3 minutes. A group of individuals may combine their time for up to 10 minutes with one spokesperson for the group. In the interest of time, order, and respect to others, complaints or charges about employees are not permissible during public comment. These issues are to be addressed to the superintendent writing. The board, superintendent, or district personnel typically do not engage in direct conversation or give feedback in the meeting. Questions or comments from those addressing the board may be referred to staff for follow up at a later date if needed. Board action and discussion is limited to previously published agenda topics in accordance with RCW 42-30. And I also ask that as while providing comment, please make sure we refrain from any disruptive language or any of that sort. Okay, I'll see the top of my list. I have Kay Gagnon. So if we could unmute Kay.
Hello, I'd like to thank all the board members and Dr. Prine for the work that you do. I'm going to read a letter that I submitted to Dr. Prine and the school board members. I'm concerned to read the report in the Peninsula Daily News on October 24th about possible censure and multiple complaints against the Sequim School District. I'm deducting some of this for time and say, I would expect school board members and administrators to rebuke immediately anyone who speculates on whom submits hotline or whistleblower information. As a retired defense contractor employee, I respect the need for anonymous citizen hotlines. If there are concerns brought forward, the focus should be on the concern, not on who reported it. A majority of Sequim citizens voted Director Stouffer into office in 2019. That fact is the majority of citizens want him working on the board. I expect the board to work together to improve conditions for students and staff, not ask for resignations. Director Stouffer asking a question to verify the truth is not a breach of trust and discloses nothing but Mr. Stouffer's due diligence. As an executive leadership coach with over 20 years of experience, I have found focusing on priorities enable leadership teams to thrive. I suggest you work on some critical priorities. Number 1, why are there multiple complaints in an HRC case pending in our school district? Number 2, SQUIM high school proficiency levels for math is 38.5% and science 46.6%. This is unacceptable. Number 3, stop approving pay raises for administrators who are responsible for these conditions. The teachers do the hard work of adapting to COVID. They should be rewarded. Number 4, harassment, retaliation, sex with students, verbal sexual abuse, intimidation, bullying claims all have no place in our schools. This must stop. Number 5, there are many people watching more closely as to what's going on in the SQUIM school district, including myself. Many community members have shared they have witnessed unacceptable behavior by SSD's personnel. However, they fear retribution and stay silent. Why and how can so many good people stay silent? This is really a question I've been dealing with over the last 8 months. I can honestly say people have shared they fear for their jobs, their businesses, their children's being retaliated against. Stop the retribution so their voices can be heard. Bad things happen when good people stay silent. Determine the root causes of this culture and fix it. Let's bravely deal with our past and make SQUIM School District a safe environment for students and staff. Roll up your sleeves and do the hard work, both the superintendent and the board members. We can do better by our children, and we must. Open up lines of communication, work effectively as a leadership team, and tackle the challenging priorities. Our votes matter. Respectfully, Kay Gagnon. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Next, Sheena Younger.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Sheena.
Okay, thank you. Sheena Younger, SQUIM. Director Koo keeps referring to me as a former district parent, like it somehow diminishes my concerns. I do live in the SQUIM school district. My goal is to have a safe and professional environment so my daughter can attend school, and I am a SQUIM school district parent. After reading the article in the Peninsula Daily News and seeing what has been posted online, I need to point out to the school board in our community the jeopardy the behaviors of board colleagues and the interim superintendent is putting the SQUIM school district in. There are many others, but I'll highlight the most concerning. Number 1, it is clear the interim superintendent is focused on exposing and retaliating against federally protected whistleblowers and those who raise complaints. Based on evidence, she is also lying to the school board about who the whistleblower purportedly was. Again, this is yet another form of retaliation. We cannot have someone leading the SQUIM school district that is lying to the elected officials that make up this board. Number 2, the interim superintendent is interfering with employees and a board director's federally protected leave. Federal medical leave, interference, lawsuits are the lawsuits with the highest payouts. This act of trying to demote the assistant superintendent while she was on a federally protected leave exposes this school district to immense liability. Number 3, Brian and Brandino, the most 3 senior women in the district office came to you during Dr. Clark's evaluation period and asked you for an executive session. You denied them after having just discussed and approved an executive session for male administrators. What was the difference? Why wouldn't you want to hear what the employees who work with Dr. Clark daily had to say? Brandino, when I came to you a year later and begged you to listen to these women, you ignored me as well. School board members, stop focusing on the one board member willing to ask some tough questions and seek the truth, and look in the mirror at the responsibility you hold for this mess as well. Where is the leadership and transparency?
Okay, thank you, Sheena, if you're done. All right. And where are we at here? Sorry, I'm trying to pull up that email. We have one written comment here that I have to go through. I'm writing to express my disappointment in the behavior of the school board in the absence of board member Jim Stauffer while he was out on leave. This is my first time providing public comment to the board. I do not have children in this district, so my engagement to date has always been supportive of the bonds and levies, as I believe that a school district's reputation is instrumental in building a strong community. Recent things that have come to light, however, lead me to question the judgment of cohesiveness of the board and whether support in the future is warranted. One of the hallmarks of a well-functioning board is how the members treat each other, especially in a crisis. From everything that I have seen that has been reported in publicly, the school district is indeed in some sort of crisis. Shoot, hang on. Wrong forward button. By attempting to publicly censor board member Jim Stauffer and call for his resignation, the message that has been sent to the public is that the board is dysfunctional and cannot behave in a professional manner. Any board, council, or commission, when faced with a question as an action or intent by a fellow board member, would first attempt to seek clarification via the adopted channels and policies of the governing documents privately. The goal being to seek understanding of what occurred and the intent behind it. Isn't there some sort of due process to allow him to present and speak to any allegation, especially for a widely recognized community champion, volunteer, and supporter such as Jim Stauffer? Since the allegations have not been confirmed by waging a public shamming as it has achieved nothing but to make the public wonder why the red herring. What is the display of bullying attempting to distract us from? Why isn't the board focusing instead on addressing all of the other reports of bullying, harassment, and retaliation within the district? It's bad enough we have a city council, certain members of which have attracted national attention in an unwelcome way to our community. Please do not follow in their footsteps. You can still make this right. Nicole Hartmans. Make sure there's no other hands. Okay. Okay, thank you for comments. Next up, we have our student board representatives. First up, we would have our senior representative, Alyssa Beebe.
Hi.
We lost you, Alyssa. You came off mute and went back on mute.
Now, can you hear me now?
We have you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. It's so nice to be back, actually, to go back to the schools and get the report face to face with them. So first is Sequim High School, and they would like to say that the first quarter of the first semester ended October 29th. November will be a month full of early releases and no school days, so be sure to check the calendar at Sequim High School official website. Seniors are still working on their college applications and on their scholarship notebooks. So there will be a Zoom meeting for the scholarship notebooks on November 8th with a lot more information. So make sure you check that out too. Also, the first choir concert for this year will be held today, November 1st at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. Sequim Middle School would like to say that the football team won the league title. Yay, congratulations. The after school clubs are up and moving and running. They have two new clubs called Rocket League and Green Team. Rocket League is an esport club where the kids can play vehicle soccer games against other schools and other teams from Washington and other states. The Green Team establishes sustainable practices at school, including a nature space, in and outdoor. Be sure to check them both out. And I don't have a report from OPA, sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alyssa. Okay, next up, we have our junior representative, Caleb Gentry, or Klinger, sorry. Caleb Klinger, sorry about that.
No problem. First, I have a report from Helen Haller Elementary, and they would like to say that the specialist of the week brought to us by 4 years ago by their music teacher, Mrs. Lorenzen, is in full swing. Each class receives points during their specialist time. The specialists total the points, and there is one class per week that wins. There are common expectations for all specialists and posters to show what they are. The class of the week gets to keep the trophy for the week and gets a certificate to hang on their wall. Classes also get a certificate for a high performance, which is only 3s and 4s for scoring. Each Monday, we will share the specialist of the week winners over our intercom. Our students enjoyed using their Cougar callouts to purchase items in our Cougar Cave. This is our token economy system within our PBIS framework. Our Cougars earn them for exhibiting safe, responsible, and respectful behaviors. They were able to purchase books, jewelries, Hot Wheels, and the kids' most popular item, Poppet Fidgets. Helen Haller would also wish to thank Janet Gray and the Boys and Girls Club for the generous donation of 100 computer mice. Now that we are one-to-one and assessing K-5 using our one-to-one laptops for SBA, iReady, and everything else, we have classes needing mice and headphones. The picture retakes that were scheduled for November 3rd are going to be rescheduled. The date has not yet been determined. Helen Haller would also like to send a thank you to Home Depot for the donation of a giant box of glue sticks and glue. We will use them for sure. From Grey Wolf Elementary, we also had to cancel our school picture retakes due to processing issues for Life Touch. At the time, no date has been reset. At the elementary level, we will not have costume dress-up days in conjunction with Halloween. We will encourage our kids to wear black and orange on the Friday preceding Halloween as to not disturb the learning. We are working to solidify our tier time at Grey Wolf Elementary. Our goal is that 30 minutes each day, students have a time set aside to receive specific instruction on key learnings that may have been missed the previous school year. Grade level teams have been busy establishing their norms and focus area for their students. These are all the reports that I have at this time.
Thank you, Caleb. All right, next up, we have our regular board communication. I'll start off with Director Jeffries today.
Okay, I'm trying to get my act together here to talk about certain things. First of all, I attended the recent safety committee meeting, and basically they're starting off the process with trying to start up where they left off before COVID hit, and taking some of their priority listings there, see what maybe has already been accomplished, what needs to be accomplished, and what we need to continue on with. So I really was pleased with those efforts at the safety committee meeting. I then also attended the policy committee meeting, and they too were kind of in an orientation phase because this was the first meeting of a new committee, policy committee, which one of their scopes of or charges of their areas of concentration will not be policy series 1000, which is the school board policies. Basically, the policy committee will take a look at policies, current policies, take a look at WSSDA's model policies that come out quarterly or so in their policy and legal news, and then make recommendations to the board for policy changes, which we would then approve or adopt. On the policy level 1000 series, I'm given recent circumstances, especially surrounding public comment. We need to take a look at that and see if we want to change our policy, and then that might also take a look at our procedure. There's also other policy, new policies presented by WSSDA dealing with board ethics and dealing with the violations of board ethics that we need to take a look at as a board. And just in general, we haven't looked, we did review the policy 1000 series, but we started that back in October of 2020. So it's been over a year. I suggest or recommend that we don't do anything substantive to those policies until the new board is sworn in. However, in the meantime, I plan to continue to work on those. And I think there were a couple potentially new board members that were attending this meeting that I will be requesting for guidance on how the board should proceed with the 1000 series. And then we'll await and see what the policy committee does for us. And I would just like to say, even though we need to probably take a look at our limitations and what we allow and don't allow for public speaking, I do appreciate the public comments, and hopefully we can continue doing that in the future. That's it. I look forward to the school improvement plan presentations this afternoon, or this evening, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Koo.
All right, thank you, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha.
Okay, thanks. I just want to start by saying, one, Alyssa, good to have you here tonight. It's been a little while, and glad to have you back. And Caleb, great to have you as well. I want to say congratulations to our fall athletes for a successful season of competition representing our schools. It's been fun to see the updates and to see the successes of some of our standout athletes and just entire teams that have just done some amazing stuff this season. And personally, it just feels like it's one step towards returning to normalcy. I appreciated the public comments tonight, and I want to address this directly. My apologies if I offended by referring to Ms. Younger as a former district parent. I didn't mean to be diminutive in tone or disparaging with those words, and will continue using them to describe her. A couple other comments I want to make, and to speak plainly, given a lot of the commentary and misinformation that's been floating around out there. To clarify, censure does not mean to censor. A censure is a formal rebuke of an elected official's errant behavior, not an attempt to silence them. Censure reasons may include a violation of policy, confidentiality, and/or behavior on becoming an elected official. Has no enforcement authority, but serves to enhance transparency of board activity and call attention to unacceptable behavior. All of the things I think most parents and voters are asking for these days. The board has and continues to allow for complaints against school board members and the superintendent to be discussed in public comments. We don't and haven't since 2018 or 19, forgive me on the dates there, allowed for any complaints against other staff members to be heard. We do allow for these complaints to be delivered in written format. During COVID, we've read comments and complaints aloud so long as they are focused on the board or superintendent. Finally, in early December 2019, there was a request to talk to the board about then Superintendent Dr. Clark, likely related to the considered extension of his interim contract. Director Gibson and I met with the employees who requested to meet with us, but no complaint was ever disclosed, and there was no further request to meet, either with us or the entire board. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Director Koo. Director Pickens.
Thank you. Briefly, just wanted to report I attended the WSSDA General Assembly over the weekend. It was about for a good chunk of the day Friday, and then all day. Well, it wasn't quite all day on Saturday. So we voted on quite a few items. So and a lot of great things passed that we'll continue to advocate for this legislative session. Things that certainly represent SQUIM well and be great things for SQUIM students. So I want to thank the rest of the board for bestowing that onto me. I don't know if I should be thanking or not thanking, but I was happy to move that forward and represent the SQUIM school district on that. So and with that, only other thing I wanted to, well, a couple other things, I guess, briefly, but I just wanted to call out, I think there's been a lot of talk about other things, particularly around board dynamics. And I certainly don't want us to get too far away from supporting the work that's happening in the classroom, and just bringing us back to the fact that we have this is the hardest year probably that our teachers and principals and other educators have experienced. There's more gaps than ever. And I certainly want to make sure that first and foremost that we are doing whatever we can to support our folks that are doing the work of the school district. And we're right now we're couple of months into the school year, almost a couple of months into the school year, and it is going to be a long year. So want to make sure that we're providing that support. Regarding I guess the only thing I'll say just regarding the censure process is that I will continue to advocate for transparency and due process regardless. And other than that, my only other comment is if you haven't yet voted, please get out there and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pickens. I don't have anything to share at this time. We got a lot ahead of us on the plate here, so let's move on. Okay, first up, we have our team from Winnehaw on our capital projects levy.
Good evening, and good evening to the board and interim superintendent Prine. All right, last month we talked about how we were starting up the levy review and starting to look at recent projects. And this month we've got some good news on actual activity and action. If you could please go to slide 3. All right, since our last update, we have 2 projects that were put in front of the board for final approval because they were quasi-funded by the ESSER funds. That would be the board room at the district office as well as the elevator. Those were reviewed on the 18th and they went out for solicitation on the 20th and 22nd. For bidding from designers early November. Right now we had a site walk on the 27th, which we had 1 attendee and 2 others respond that they would have liked to make it. So we know of 3 design firms that are currently looking at the project and hopefully more. Right now, the intent is to have those about the 9th of November to go to bid, and then we'll be actually looking at starting the first actions of actual design and implementation of the levy. Scroll down if you can. All right, now in regards to the overall tier 1 projects, as an update, the fire alarm at Helen Haller, we discussed that as possibly going out as an RFP last month. However, after really reviewing it, we found that actually the maintenance contractor, who is already under contract with facilities, is capable of putting in those 3 devices that we need there without concern with actually modifying the existing system. The existing system is anticipated to have a complete overhaul in tier 2, which should be 2023 to 2024. So we want to make sure that that's a compatible system moving forward. And that company has a lot of understanding of the work around the occupied space and has done work at Helen Haller. The voice systems and the information technologies projects for the total school district network are underway. We're starting to work on finalizing the design and scope of work with Bo Young and the IT group. We had a meeting on the 21st to really discuss what those scopes are and how that's going to be affecting any of the existing systems in the occupied spaces. That work is really scheduled to start after the first levy distribution in April. So right now we're trying to get the scope finalized, and we're actually looking at the main fiber lines and seeing whether or not we could actually place those on order. The run lengths are already determined, and that's about 29 spools of fiber, quite a bit. It's going to be a full connex, but they're anticipating major increases in pricing come the early 2022. So we're looking at early ordering to lock in pricing and save some money against the levy. The voice systems, there's a couple of bids going out that are currently looking at replacing the phone sets throughout OPA, the technology building, and the kitchen to get those systems online with the Microsoft Teams setup and bring it up to date to what the entire voice system is anticipating as a replacement, with the full system to be replaced and all the devices to be in April of 2022 after the start of the levy distribution. The elevator and boardroom right now, going back to that, we are anticipating design here through November and December, hopefully looking at solicitation of contractors early January, which means we'll actually start seeing some activity in construction starting at the district offices, and mostly unoccupied spaces should have little impact to any active school operations or any distraction to the students. We did have a couple of questions on combining the two projects. We're looking at that with the solicitations, which actually will hopefully reduce the cost, because then we can have combined drawings. And that'll allow us to actually use more efficiency in the design, look at one electrical and engineer, for example, to do the distribution to both facilities instead of having two, and being concerned with overlapping work, duplications of work. So all of that will be reviewed once the solicitations for the designers come in. So in the next month or two, we're hoping to have the fire alarm finalized, so we can target an installation during winter break when the school is out. They're going to have to pull lines from the building over to those portables. It would be rather disruptive. If it's possible, we're looking at doing it earlier, and that'll be night work. All right, I went over B. One item that has come up in October that I forgot to put in the monthly report, though, is as if anybody's seen it in the Sequim Gazette, the departure of Matt Klontz has kind of shifted how we're going to be looking at projects in the next once it's coming in January. The new director for the Public Works will be starting in November, so we're going to be having meetings with him to understand how that will affect permitting and what kind of timetables we'll need to get projects underway. All right, the only other item that we're currently working on now is the Gray Wolf Sewer. Between myself and John McCandy, we're having conversations already with the city of Sequim and Clallam PUD to kind of figure out what the extent of that scope would be and what makes the most sense and be the most cost efficient for tying that sewer in. There'll be further conversation on that as that develops, and we really start to get into what that actually means about removing the septic system at Gray Wolf and tying it into the municipal waterworks. And as we go through all of these, now that we're starting to see some action, we'll start modifying the levy projects list and adjust the prioritization as we find the actual costs come in. Some of the items we're looking at is a potential to move forward with the roof replacement on I think it's Sequim Middle School, and do those modifications in tier 1 instead of tier 2 based on the numbers and the discussions with the IT group. Oh yeah, Sequim Middle School. So we're looking at potentially moving that and doing the recode early. We have an opportunity for that as well. Beyond that, still working on trying to figure out what's the next step, where we're going to hit first. Open to questions.
Go ahead, Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, just, and then obviously I assume this is, I know we prioritize things on the different tiers from tier 1, 2, and 3 for the different years, but I would assume that you would also coordinate the projects as well for as minimum disruption towards students if there's something that could take place during the summer versus during the school year. I'm assuming that you factor that in as well.
Absolutely. Things like roof replacements and the roof recoating, especially on the replacement side, you might be doing demolition to the sheathing. For example, if it's over a gym, that would create an entire shutdown of that facility. There's no way to have the safety of the students working underneath. So we're taking a look at how those are but a great example would be the voice system. That could be done early mornings and evenings. All it is we're at this point is replacing all of the phone lines and programming and tying them into one universal system district wide. So that's something we're looking at trying to do during the school year.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Not sure which was up next. We'll go Director Koo.
Okay, great. Chris, thank you again for this update. I was reminded by Ms. Gagnon's comment tonight about the importance of the transparency and the trust that the voters have. Voters have with the district in this project. So thank you. This may be one to just toss out there because it may be too in the weeds for a board meeting. But at one point in time, we were looking at potential significant impact fees. I may be calling that the wrong thing. Connection fees for the Gray Wolf sewer, and I'm just curious if we've been able to seek any grace from the county or any other agency, or if we're just firmly in the latter category, and that'll be what it'll be.
That is something we'll be getting into. Until we really know what the design is, we won't really know what those impact fees are. It really depends on the calculations of how much what volume of refuse will be put into the sewer system. It's usually typically designed on, it's on a septic system right now, right? There is no impact to the PUD water treatment facility. But we're a little premature to really understand what that is. And with this change at Public Works, it's kind of throwing any previous conversations through the ringer. But we'll be continuing that conversation. If it's possible, we'd love it if they'll give us a break, but we don't even know right now what they're actually going to charge. It's a little premature for that.
Well, I may be out of my ski lane here, but at one time, this board either did or was prepared to write a letter, request or support. So if that would enhance anything, I'd certainly be willing to add my signature line to that. So please don't hesitate to let us know.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Jeffries.
Yeah, I have a couple things. I'll piggyback on the sewer system at Great Wolf. Current septic system is it your understanding, or as far as you know, that is meeting the needs of the school right now?
Currently, it is. What I understand of it, talking with John McCandy, was that there was an issue on upstream from the actual pump system, the septic tank systems to the fields. It's not a failure in the fields itself, but they are aging. So that's one of the things we're taking a look at, is how much infrastructure can be reutilized or how much would have to be replaced. We'll get into that once we engage a civil engineer, and we don't want to engage a civil engineer until we have an understanding how that's going to really work with the city's change on Public Works.
Okay, and then you mentioned the urgent need for the fire alarm at Helen Haller. And it sounds like we're able to do a somewhat temporary patch that will make that building safe until we can replace the entire system. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's three of the spaces right now have smoke detection, and they need an enunciator to meet code. It's not an unsafe, but it is a code upgrade from what was installed. The 3 devices we're going to be putting in, we're looking at a multitude of different systems, because right now the school system is on a proprietary fire alarm system, which limits the amount of service work. We're looking at moving it to an open source system, which allows competitive bidding on maintenance contracts. And right now, John is working with Guardian Security, who does some of the maintenance on some of the on the contracts, to figure out a number of options that are compatible. So when we do the full school upgrade, we will not have to redo this work. This will all become compatible with the full upgrade.
I would like to express my appreciation to you and Wenaha for your expertise in helping us out. especially in these early planning phases, to make the most of our $15 million over the next 4 years and do it smartly and do it right and come up with a first-class upgrades to all of our systems and facilities, everything that you guys are working on. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. And yeah, just to tag along with what Director Koo was stating too on, the impact fees or whatever they would be on the Gray Wolf system. Part of the issue was when this that first hookups was set up, there was like a $3,000 buy-in fee to hook up, and then that increased to like $9,000, and then it substantially grew per hookup, I think to like 36,000. I don't remember the exact number, and then we needed 3, so that puts us in the 100,000 range, something of that sort. And that was the area that we were, I think, trying to work with county commissioner and all to be able to see if there was a way to waive that or cut that back a little bit as well, since we weren't able to hook up in the very beginning just because of funding and not having the money at that time because of the additional pieces to that puzzle. I mean, the 3,000 a piece to hook up, but then all the other items to do that work was outside of the realm of the money that we had. So anyway, I think that was kind of just a background of where Director Koo was coming from when we were talking about those fees. And if they're willing to budge a little bit, that would be wonderful.
We've when you're talking about the sewer connection fees, they basically start to charge for every bathroom, for every sink, for every toilet. It starts to calculate, and it adds up quite a bit. One of the things that we've taken a look at before is whether or not the standardized charging actually equates to the usage by the facility. I've been able to negotiate that where it really is more of instead of a blanket that's some random calculation over the course of a year to every single type of facility, to actually look at what it is and look what kind of cost impact that's really going to have, not just a standard ERU as it's called. So we'll be taking a look at that. I didn't know, I hadn't been fully informed of any conversations that had happened with the county or PUD prior to negotiations of that. So I will start looking into that.
Yes, yeah, that was quite a while ago when we were doing that. I think back when Gary Neal was still superintendent, when we were started those conversations. So thank you, and thanks again for Chris for all you and Winnahal's work and all. We appreciate everything, and thanks for the presentation this evening.
Thank you.
All right, there we go. Okay. Next up, we have our transportation report from Rich Fulmer.
Good evening. Good evening, board members. I've prepared a report for the 2020-2021.
Rich, we can barely hear you.
Is that better?
That's a little better.
Okay. So I prepared a report this evening for the 2020-2021 school year. As you can see, our riderships approach pre-COVID numbers. We're transporting more than 1,500 students per day. We currently have 18 gen ed routes, 6 special need routes. We travel over 1,200 miles a day. Our buses, our routes span from O'Brien Road, which is east of Port Angeles, to Old Gardner Beach Road, west of Diamond Point. Department currently has 34 full-time employees, consisting of 24 bus drivers, 6 bus aides, 2 dispatcher routers, 1 mechanic, and myself. In a typical year, we have 68 substitutes available. This year has been quite a challenge. We could really use some new trainees. We have a driver trainer on staff, and we are able to train for CDL licenses. Our district fleet consists of 33 buses. We have 5 gasoline powered, 28 clean burn diesels. We have 13 support vehicles, lots of miscellaneous equipment and maintenance vehicles that are maintained by our department. The fleet is inspected twice a year by the Washington State Patrol, one being a surprise inspection that happens anytime after November 1st, and the other is scheduled during a summer break. We have received very high ratings from Washington State Patrol and OSPI again this year. We just went through our summer inspection. We have quite a few new protocols for the department this year, sanitizing, electrostatic fogging the buses. We do that between each run. We're making sure that the students have masks available and that they're wearing the mask while they're on the bus. Students now have assigned seating on the bus. Drivers are maintaining a seating chart for the potential of contact tracing. And lastly, this year's updated snow routes are posted on the district website. If parents would like to take a sneak peek and have a look at them in advance for that snowy day that might be coming.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Is that all?
That's it.
Okay, I think we've got a question from Director Jeffries, or question, comment, or something. Larry, the floor is yours.
Well, it's a little bit of both. I often drive by Gray Wolf in the morning and or in the afternoon, and I see the big long lines of parents to come pick up their kids, and then I see the crowded bus pickup in the back of Gray Wolf. Assuming parents to decide to start letting their students ride the buses, I'm not sure what the full rationale is by parents to pick up their kids and sit in that line. But if they decide to have their kids ride the buses, do we have buses, and is there enough room in the back of Gray Wolf to add more buses if we were going to add more kids to the routes? Just an observation and a question.
Sure, we do have, and we have in the morning, we have a Gray Wolf transfer, which is up to 5 buses as needed. That happens at the stadium lot. So we definitely have more room for students on the bus. I believe it's gotten better since the start of the year, and people are starting to relax a little bit more and introduce the students back onto the bus. We try to limit the amount of buses to Gray Wolf because it has been congested. So we brought the Gray Wolf transfer bus back this year, actually. But there's definitely enough room for more riders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rich. Doesn't seem that there's any other questions from the board. So appreciate all that you and your team do for the district, and particularly our kids, and keeping them safe getting to and from school. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have our public records transparency report from Victoria.
Thank you, President Gibson. Good evening, directors. So what you have in front of you this morning or this evening is our public records transparency report, and it is in response to Board Policy 6030 that was passed by the board on August 16th of this year. So my office is still working through some of the challenges that come with generating this report, which this evening would include the fact that at least one, perhaps 2 of our open requests were inadvertently left off of this report. And a few records on this report have actually already been closed. So I apologize for this oversight. We are taking the necessary steps to avoid these errors in the future. So our report should be a little more accurate. One of the things we're very excited to announce is that we have hired a very sharp individual to assist our public records officer in preparing our reports. He will be working 20 hours per week. His first day was today. Another tool that we're getting ready to implement is a software program that will assist us with tracking our records requests and help us create a sharper system for reporting. We hope that this program will be up and running within the next few weeks, and the board will see an improvement in our accuracy and our efficiency. And as I mentioned last month, we respect the public's right to this information. We're just trying to find a way to get it disseminated as accurately and as timely as possible. At the moment, our systems are a little clunky. And so we are definitely taking all the steps we can to remedy this. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Director Koo.
All right, Victoria, thank you. You know how when you say something one time and it gets misinterpreted and repeated over and over, I want to say that I completely support the public's ability to request records, period, hard stop. That said, and in that spirit, I appreciate this report and what we're seeking to achieve in terms of transparency as best as possible with district operations and things of the like. So thank you for the work you're continuing to do for this and to work to be as responsive as your team has been, and obviously committing the resources to bring on additional support to be able to process these in a timely manner as best as possible. So thank you.
Of course.
Sarah?
Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, thank you for all your work and putting these all together. Now, as I understand it, now we have basically 1.5 people working on these requests. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So 1.5 people plus when we need to pull in our technology department to do searches and things like that. And when, of course, our public records officer has to reach out to our administrators and teachers and, hey, do you guys have any records? So as far as dedicated to pulling together the reports that get disseminated out to our public, 1.5 people, but it's definitely takes a village.
So it's more than that. In reality, it takes more than 1.5 people to put this together, correct?
To get the right information out there, it does, yes.
Just in general, tell me about open. Why do they remain open? What are some of the factors that keep some of these as open?
They'll stay open until we feel that we have found all of the records that there are to find for any given report. So once we believe that we have captured all of the responsive records, we will make a final. We believe we'll send the remaining distribution of records to the requester and say, we believe this closes your report. We close it, we would take it off the list.
And then would that be reflected on the list? Closed, closed, closed? I mean, can we look forward to that sort of thing?
You know, if you'd like, again, this is definitely a work in progress, and I can see the value of seeing what's been closed. So we're hoping that our new software will be very helpful and will be much more accessible and maybe even easier to read and decipher. And I think it would be reasonable if you're, to include closed requests. This is one of those board policies that's in the 6,000s. So it's really would be considered a financial report. But since it's my office that handles the public records, it's kind of a human resources report. So one of the things we've added to this report is the potential costs involved because it's a financial report. So we're hoping that when we can really streamline this, we can better articulate all that's involved in producing the public records. And if the board would like to see the records that have been closed, we can certainly explore what that might look like.
Okay,
Long
and
answer to a short question.
Well, I know a lot of these are long answers to short questions where some of these requests I can't think of any right off the top of my head, but some of these requests go, they're requesting several years of everything, every email ever written about anything. Almost, I mean, that's a hyperbole, I realize, but
Yeah.
still, some of these requests are huge.
Mhm,
Am I
mhm.
right?
You're right. So they take quite a bit of time to research and gather and to make sure that we aren't overlooking anything.
But once you perfect the system here and you become perfect,
Right.
as a member of the policy committee, it'd be good for you to take a look at those policies and see what might need to be updated as a response to your experience to all this. What do we need to add or remove or modify in some of those policies to make your magic happen? Is that a good way to put it?
Yes.
And then for these reports come out at the first board meeting each month, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, well, great job. Tell your people again, you know how much I bow to what you guys are doing over there as just an amazing job. And the people involved, I know, are working probably more than full-time, if truth be told. And so appreciate all your efforts very much on behalf of the district.
Thank you, Director Jeffries. I appreciate your support, and it's definitely a work in progress.
All right. Yes, and thank you, Victoria, to you and your team. I know this is a huge undertaking, and again, something that we do appreciate those that that do the request, but I know that it also takes time away from the regular day-to-day duties that are really needed to operate and maintain the district, and that's the unfortunate part about it. But thank you from you and your team.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we're going to work through our schools and get our SIP presentations. First up, leading the pack, we have the Gray Wolf Pack.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share about Gray Wolf, and we will try and stay within our 10 minutes. I don't see the timer, Tracy. Are you going to do that, or do I set my timer?
I am working on it, and it is being difficult. So
all right, I've set mine. I've set mine, so we'll be good to go. So directors, anytime we look at trying to overview a building and the work of the building in 10 minutes, we're going to have to speak in some generalities, and we'll have to look at some overviews of data and other information. Mrs. Lopez and I are here tonight to talk about Gray Wolf's CSIP plan. We want to start, Tracy, with data on page 3. Instead of jumping into specific data, what I'm going to try and do is show you patterns in the data throughout. And anytime, again, we talk about patterns in data, they're not perfect. There will be an anomaly here or there. But what you'll see when you first notice Gray Wolf data is that our level 1 and 2 results are usually much lower than the state. And when you look at our 3 and 4 levels, they're much higher than the state. So Gray Wolf does very well on state testings overall. For third grade data, I should also say before I really get started, each of the students in this 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade data are actually middle schoolers. So the data that we're looking at today is not reflective of any students who are currently at Gray Wolf. So that's just a disclaimer. And so if you look at our 3rd grade data, we're 10 points above the state in ELA, 23 points above the state in math. The next page, Tracy, when you look at, again, our level 4 above the state, 14 points above the state in 4th grade ELA, and 15 points above the state in 5th grade, in 4th grade mathematics. Now an anomaly, page 5, when we look at our 5th grade data from 3 years ago and 2 years ago, you will see that we are 1 point below the state in 5th grade writing, ELA, 14 points above the state in mathematics. That again is data that is old. It's no longer indicative of the students at Gray Wolf, but we'll still report it as it is the truth of our data as we have at this point at the state level. We can move to page 6. I want to share some strengths at Gray Wolf. We have a senior and kind of very collaborative staff. We've spent a lot of time during the COVID time at home working to strengthen our Tier 1 services. We also have strong Tier 2 and 3 areas of support, and we'll talk about that at some length. Because the data we have is, we've got a void of data for the last 2 years. Last fall, we really started talking as a staff about some initiatives that we wanted to bring forward this year. Because we are a very data-driven school, that's a strength of our school. But a secondary strength of our school is really, we're a systems school. So we try to find systems and put things in place to help during basically troubled times as we've just faced. So in the fall, we came up with several building initiatives. We turned 2 of those initiatives into our school-wide goals in language arts and mathematics, and we'll cover that as we move forward. We've initiated a new program called Tier Time, and that's the plan when it reaches its kind of conclusion will be 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day, where we really look to close gaps in targeted priority standards from the last 2 years when kids either could not be in school or potentially could not connect with school in the way that we would like them to be able to while we're while we were home. If we can go to page 7, our disaggregated data. I'm just going to draw your attention to 3rd grade information because we're moving on in time here. Special ed numbers, we are ahead of the state with our students who are on IEPs. Our Hispanic Latino population well above the state in both math and reading. 2 or more races well above the state in math and reading. And our ELL students, 3rd grade ELL, 100% of students passed, and at the state level, 18% of students passed. You can look at that same data for 4th and 5th grade. We're going to hop forward to new data, page 17, page 12. Tracy. Acadian's data is our reading screening data, and we're going to be looking at the top right-hand corner. You would expect our reading scores to be significantly down. We test kids the first week of school. I was surprised. I think we are both surprised and not surprised at some low numbers, but as in our 2nd and 3rd grade, we're actually scoring higher in reading than we were the previous 2 times that we've tested kids. And we believe there's a couple of reasons for that. Even when students could not access education like we would like them to, we really believe that parents still had their students read and read to their students. And we think that shows up in our Acadian's data. As we move forward to page 15, you can see our ethnicity and discipline report. We have very little discipline at Gray Wolf, sometimes as few as 8 to 10 written referrals in a school year. We really believe strongly that when students can read, when they can access content, there's very little reason for them to be disruptive in the school setting. And so hopefully you've had a chance to look at the data because it's a lot of data. When we, again, are looking at strengths of our team on page 17, and Tracy, I'll just have you scroll through these next few pages as we move through it. We have really strong Tier 1 services. We've tried to increase that with Tier Time at the classroom level. Both now our primary and our intermediate meet with literacy coach once every other week in order to track reading and track student work. When we look at barriers, we want to talk just for one quick minute about attendance, because we had some great successes in attendance, and now we have some attendance issues that most every grade level sees attendance as a barrier this year.
Yeah, so I would say that several years ago, our attendance rates were down in the 80s. The year that COVID started, we improved our attendance up to 95%. We had several building-wide initiatives. where we really emphasized kids coming to school and lots of ways to celebrate them for doing that and share that information with families. We last year, with having the hybrid learning model, once again saw a lot of attendance concerns. I think the challenge for families and even attendance for the online days or attendance for the in-person days. So the state has not released that attendance data yet for last year, but we anticipate really hitting the ground running and working hard on attendance this year once again.
Absolutely. We're going to move to page 21, go over our goals. One of the things we did last fall is we set up two SMART goals, one for ELA and one for mathematics. We have two overarching goals, and that is grades 1-5 to test students with the math screener. Every 3 to 5 times a year, we take the data from that math screener and then use it in small group instruction. Every teacher at Gray Wolf who teaches ELA will follow the goal that's written out as the SMART goal. A big component of that is tier time that we are trying to use to really prioritize those missing priority standards. Page 23, math. We also have a math screener that was developed by Pam Landoni, and now Carla Wicker heads that. We screen all students in math the first 2 weeks of school. They are tested on the priority standard from the year before. So if I'm a second grader, I am tested on kindergarten priority standards. We also use tier time. We have Title I services in each of our classrooms each day. And Mrs. Lopez, we have about 2 minutes to try and get through the last two.
Great, thank you. Tracy, if you can go to page 24, I'll talk about our building culture goal. So our culture goal is that all of our staff members and our students will experience increased feelings of belonging and inclusion within our school. And so we have several things that we're working on with that. For example, each day in our K-5 classes, they watch social emotional learning videos at their lunch times. Students, because of social distancing, are eating lunch in their classrooms. And so paraeducators turn on a video that's been recorded by our special education department and has support from everyone throughout the building. These videos focus on underdeveloped social skills. They introduce our social emotional learning curriculum. They encourage our kids to develop and use hope and grit. They're a big highlight for us. Our K2 classes have in-person lessons from our student support staff. And another thing we did last year at the end of the year, we spent about $5,000 of our building funds and PTA funds on multicultural books. We felt it's really important for our kids to see themselves in the books that are in our classrooms and in our library. So we put a lot of funding into that, and we think that's going to pay dividends for us. Our next goal is looking at multi-tiered systems of support, and Donna kind of covered a lot of what we're doing with that. We're having teachers assess students throughout the school year using Fontes and Pinnell reading assessments, and then that guides our small group instruction. The teachers meet bi-monthly with our Tier 2 support staff and administration to discuss student progress. So that is something that our K2 staff have been doing for quite some time, and now our grades 3 through 5 are doing that as well.
Great. We're out of time. So Tracy, if you can hop to page 30. We had a wide group of people work on the plan, from building administration to a grade level rep at each grade level of our building, SCA rep, special education rep, PTA representatives, someone from our para union who was on vacation on the meeting that we signed this, but she is a part of it. And then we have 2 support staff plus our new MTSS staff support person. And so we feel it's a strong plan. It's a building-wide plan. It's a plan that we established because we knew we would need to do something special this year to help our students. So we're happy to answer any questions if you have them.
All right, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, just a brief follow-up. I know you talked a little bit about what you were doing with the social emotional learning and that sense of belonging with the students. And I think part of that goal was also the staff. And I know you already have a pretty tight knit staff already. I remember that from the first day of school or first day back, and how excited folks were. But just wondered if you could touch on that briefly.
Sure, I'm happy to speak to that. So one thing we've noticed with having not the weekly professional development times, but the monthly, is we are feeling a bit disconnected. And so we are making a concentrated effort to host kind of events each month or so where staff can come together and we can get some FaceTime there. And also we, as an admin team, have really made a big emphasis of writing thank you cards to our staff as we see things happening throughout the building that we want to make sure that they know that we see, because we know they're putting in a lot of effort this year. So I want to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Director Cook?
Great. I think Assistant Principal Lopez kind of touched on the crux of my question. For one, I will start by saying thank you. This was excellent and a good insight into the good work that y'all are doing. But I also frankly appreciate the presentation format, and it indicates to me how well your administrative team works together. The question, frankly, is kind of broad, but what resource gaps do you want the board to be aware of? And that's not, with any, that's not with any political baggage at all. Just,
no, I think it's a great question. We moved almost all of our LAP money into personnel because we knew that gap between the classroom, we knew that we would have literacy and math gaps. That's something that we continue to really try to see as many kids as we can. Last year was such an interesting year of not having students in the classroom. I feel the district's been very supportive of us and the things that we have tried to do. It's not that you can't always use, if we had 10 extra sets of hands, we'd be using 10 extra sets of hands. Does that make sense? I mean, if we had different content, but we bought a lot of curriculum last year. We bought a lot of books last year because we didn't have some of the other outlay of funds that we've had in the past. So we tried to be pretty smart, and we tried to purchase things that really supported our building-wide initiatives. And so we'll think on it. I mean, I'm always happy to ask for things when we think of them, but something like this, just really people power is what makes it work for kids at this point. Just the adults being able to support them. I think we could definitely use mental health services. At the elementaries, we lost a school counselor, tried for about 6 months to hire a school counselor and could not find any to apply. So we're taking a master teacher from the kindergarten levels, and we have moved her into staff student support, and she's doing a great job. But we fall back to my counseling certificate for really that mental health work in the building. So as we are looking, I know there are grants out there at some different levels, but I'm sure Principal Queen would feel the same way, that if we had some access to mental health support for our little guys and gals, that would be a great plus to us.
Great, thank you. And I'm hearing you loud and clear. It's a terrible proxy, but I'm seeing what y'all have been talking about, just volunteering as a soccer coach, and just the gaps that's emerged over the past year and a half that we've been in isolation. So thank you.
You bet.
Larry.
Yeah, thank you very much, and really appreciate all the hard work you do, and all the schools and their school improvement plans. I don't know that I will comment on every school's plans. I am looking and have concerns about the across the district at various schools. The percentage meeting expectations seems too low to me. I'd like to see that improved. And it looks to me like in general at most of the schools, there's been a general decline since about 2014, which I'm concerned about. And I know that you have some fantastic programs and people over there. And hopefully I guess you report back to us maybe in February or so. I'd like to start seeing some improvements. I know we have programs in place, but are they working? And to me, some of this raw data, for better or for worse, that comes from state report card indicates whether over the long run, we have an upward trend or a downward trend. And I would encourage all the school districts to disaggregate that data very carefully to look and see where the gaps are. I mean, I've seen some significant gaps, especially in math, that I'm very concerned about. And I think all the schools need to do a deeper dive into what's going on there and what can we do to fix that. So I'll probably limit my comments for all the other school improvement plans, because I would pretty much say the same thing to all of them right now. Good job. You got some fantastic people working out there. And I'm just constantly amazed, the kids and the teachers. And it's why we're in this business. So I just want to see continuous improvement.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's one of the things we really look at. We try and look at our scores and the state scores. And we feel like, even though you may feel like scores are potentially low, when we're coming out above the state average, I still find that we have to find reasons to celebrate that. And by turn, when we are even with the state or below, we do have to address that and look at our systems, our programs, and try and make corrections. So I totally agree. All right, so thank you guys for the opportunity to share, and thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna and Jennifer. Okay, next up, we have the team from Helen Haller.
Well, good evening. It's so wonderful to be here. Because it was only 10 minutes, we did decide that I would do most of, well, I would hog it all. But I do want to say Sarah Decker was intimately involved in the creation of this. So I'd like to start by just sharing that during our back to school days, we spent a lot of time modeling what we wanted our teachers to do, which was a soft re-entry. After 18 months of disruption and teaching not post-pandemic, but through a pandemic, we wanted to model a soft re-entry, and we focus a lot of our time and energy on team building and getting to know one another. We did have a theme, and our theme for the year is, this year is going to be incredible. And we use the characters of the Incredibles to kind of model, just like Mr. Incredible learns that we're stronger if we work together as a team. We got to be careful about not going too fast, like Dash. Like Violet, we're sometimes going to have to embrace our ability to have good boundaries. And most importantly, we're going to stretch and grow like Mrs. Incredible. Especially focusing on being strength-based and knowing that last year has been very unpredictable, much like Jack. Next slide. So here's some Helen Haller by the numbers, a couple numbers I'd just like to tease out, and these are 2021 numbers. We have 4% English language learners. We've been staying pretty consistent at our 50-50 with our low socioeconomic or non-low socioeconomic. We have about 6% high cap, and we have 19.4% special education. And I do want to point out that this is not due to overqualifying. Our school hosts the P5 life skills and our developmental preschool, which I will say is both an honor and a delight. A few numbers to tease out of that next slide would be our gender and our growing Latinx population and our 2 or more races. And again, this is 2021 data. Next up, Sarah is very homeroom dashboard savvy, and she pulled our 21-22 data, and you can see it staying pretty consistent. Then, just for fun, we went ahead and used our preliminary data from our fall 21 SBA. And I want to be really clear that we're still in the SBA window, so this is not complete. And this is the fourth graders this fall taking the spring third grade SBA. Just a couple of points that I would like to tease out where you can see some disparate data is in our low socioeconomic and our special ed when it comes to the fourth grade, which again is the third grade SBA. And then our 2 or more races. And then go ahead and go to the next slide, Tracy. And on our fifth grade, which again is the fourth grade spring, you can see some disparate data that points to, again, low income with ELA. And those are the biggest gaps. And so we will wait for the window to close. And now I think we have 8 more kids that need to test. We'll get them through, and then we'll take a deeper dive into the disparities when the data is finalized and released. Then our next series of slides, what I want to point out is we're going to look at first grade through fifth grade. We're going to look at ELA data through the measurement of Acadience, which was formerly called Dibbles. And then we're going to look at math through iReady. So in first grade, you can see 60% out of 75 students are below benchmark in ELA. In math, we have, we have 73 one grade level below, and then we have 21% more than one grade level below. Go ahead, Tracy. Second grade, 44% out of 70 scored below the beginning of the year benchmark. And in math, we had 53% one grade level below and 32% more than one grade level below. Go ahead. Third grade, 40%, and then 39% one grade level below, 39% 2 grade levels below, and 3 or more grade levels below were 17%. And then in fourth grade, this is where we get a little breath. And we'll go to fifth grade next, but we have 25% below in ELA, and then 48% one grade level or below, and then significantly smaller percentages in the 2 or 3. And then fifth grade, 22% of 98 scored below, and then 49% one grade level below. And what we feel this trend data shows us is that our fourth and fifth graders who had strong foundational skills to access their ELA and math curriculum did better than our first, second, and third graders, lacking those foundational critical first couple years of school foundational skills. And that's where we're going to invest our energy. Go ahead. So all students as identified as needing targeted support in foundational skills from the years prior will meet mastery to ensure access to their on grade level curriculum and instruction. The people who worked primarily on these goals included Betsy Smith, our reading specialist, Sherry Surian, our math specialist, myself, and Sarah Decker. We also included our building council, where we have a rep from every grade, special education, our office staff, and our counselor and our paraeducators. So strengths and barriers. At Helen Haller, we boast an excellent, caring, dedicated, experienced, largely veteran staff, very strong 3-tiered reading program that includes CKLA, 95% group, and strong, trained staff to intervene at levels 2 and 3. Our barriers as we see them are much larger than usual number of students needing intensive academic intervention. And then equally a large number of students requiring lots of social emotional support and lots of teaching and reteaching of behaviors. So an additional action plan about math that I wanted to share is because we're going to model the implementation of our 3-tiered supports through our reading program in math. So Sarah Decker will work with a small committee to adopt an evidence-based math intervention program that we will propose at the end of this year. We have additional goals of establishing strong or continuing to strengthen our multi-tiered systems of support at Helen Haller. We have a strong team made up of stakeholders, and as soon as we're able to invite our parent community on campus, we'll add a parent and a couple students. We're following the pacing of a state and regional level grant and training. Myself and Jennifer Saul went to training with the CI3T group this summer, and we'll use resources from that group as well. We meet bi-weekly, and our goal is to provide specific and targeted professional development to the full staff so we can create a blueprint for full implementation of tiered supports in the areas of math, behavior, and social emotional learning for the 21-22 school year, that should say. On our MTSS committee is Marie-Claire Bernards. She is our social emotional specialist. Kelly Miller, who teaches grade 1, Doreen Minard, grade 2, myself, Jen Saul, our counselor, Saxon Holt, grade 5, and Sarah Decker. We also will, as we will throughout all of our buildings, administer the panorama survey 3 times this year, fall, winter, spring. We'll be asking our families, students, and staff questions that measure their sense of belonging, and then we'll use that initial data to create action plans to increase the sense of belonging throughout the course of the year. And again, as I mentioned, we spent a lot of time this fall really digging in and being explicit and transparent about the implications of having 2 new building administrators returning to teaching and learning 5 days a week with all of our students after 18 months of disruption. And Helen Haller also had a key retirement, a certificated teacher who ran the Solution Center here and provided lots of behavior supports. So we know that we need to create a strong sense of belonging. We knew we were going to need to revisit and reteach expected behaviors in all of our teaching spaces. And we have done very well, except I will say our #1 space for behavior errors is the playground at recess. So we're working really hard to continue to teach kids how to play cooperatively and safely. I'm not keeping track of my time, so let me know. Our attendance rate has been historically in the 90% range. Last year it was 92%. We will continue to adopt and enlist the practices of attendance works, and we'll also enact the multi-tiered systems of support as outlined by Maren Packer, our Equity and Family Engagement Coordinator. And finally, family engagement. Our PTO has been so warm and welcoming. We meet once a month. I attend the meetings, and they are so eager to meet in person and to re-engage and reignite some of the fun things that we had going prior to COVID. And so already we're talking about not doing the turkey trot this year, but perhaps the bunny hop. And I'm 2 minutes over, I'll stop talking, bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. And just kudos to you with your team there. And as you stated, starting out with a new administration team also, and and working in the most difficult building in the district. Good
The
job.
best building.
The best building, but with its challenges, we will say that you're the best. You have some great staff there. So just thank you for all of that. I know we've got a couple of points from some other directors here, so I'll turn it over. Larry, it's yours.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I visited a few years ago over at Helen Haller, and the teachers and the kids were amazing. Your challenges that you mentioned, I know it's kind of cliche maybe, but I'm really excited, two new administrators coming into a building that's got some great teachers, and I'm, really excited for, all those possibilities. I think that's just, it's fantastic. So welcome to Helen Haller, you and Vice Principal Decker, and good things are going to happen.
Thank you. Yes, we have the Helen Haller heart.
Yeah, yes, you do. We've heard that song. It's awesome. All right, Director Q, I think you were next.
Yeah, I've got to start by disclosing that my wife and I are Haller parents. And so we've got a lot of nostalgia and love for that building and all of its pods and everyone therein. So thank you for this good presentation tonight. I do have one question. If you could add, and obviously everything just gets so blown out of proportion, on a national level, but talking about incidents on the playground. But before I finish that question, I want to tell you that the back to school event that we were at, I had not had my coffee yet, and I was dragging. But you and Assistant Principal Decker and so many others, it was just a spark of energy that I cannot otherwise describe. And I was so motivated. I was so inspired. Just by everyone there. But I just remember the two of y'all in your perhaps newness of the moment. It was just incredibly electric. But anyway, so full disclosure.
The honeymoon hasn't ended.
But tell me more about, the incidents on the playground, and do they, how much out of the norm do they seem? And then the question that I feel obliged to ask everyone tonight, and I will, is, just what are resource gaps that you want us to be aware of, even though it's certainly beyond our immediate scope as board members. But I would venture to guess that we're all very concerned about what those may be, and just want to have that in our minds moving forward.
Yes, well, I will say I have not looked at past years' recess data, but that would be interesting to look at. I actually was talking to a principal colleague friend who was feeling like, oh, the 7th grade data is out of control. There have been 96 referrals. And she went back and looked pre-COVID, and there were 400. So there is this feeling, and so we gotta check our facts, don't we? So I'll look up some historical data on recess behaviors, but I think what we're seeing is they have forgotten how to play kindly with one another. So words that aren't kind. We did a lot of reteaching at the 4th grade about what it means to include everybody. Doesn't mean you have to be best friends, but we don't have little groups that have little wars with each other. And physical, there's a lot of physicality. So actually this is funny because I have some 5th graders who really want to start an ASB. And one of them was in here today talking about some of the things that she wanted to do. And she said, I've just noticed that this year kids lose it over the smallest things. And so just needing reteaching on how to emotionally regulate without, going to the red zone or becoming physical. And I would echo everything Donna said. More paras are really helpful because we have those extreme gaps and the need to reteach behaviors. We will be able to reach more kids and bring them up to level faster if we have extra support to support them with their behaviors and the gap filling. And then 100% mental health counselor. It would be great to have additional mental health support.
Great, thank you. And Eric, I don't mean to insult you and your ilk by daring to compare the two, but like I said, just the microcosm of me coaching little bobbleheads on the soccer field and seeing a noticeable shift and challenge to the same. So it aligns with everything you, the professionals, are saying. And I appreciate you giving that daylight.
Thanks.
And Eric, you got it.
Yeah, just want to say thank you for hitting the ground running, and I appreciated in the presentation how you really just identified that challenge, and you have to know the challenge if you're gonna know how to take it on. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, and continue to let us know how we can support it through Dr. Prine, of course, but we'll do whatever we can to support it. So just keep those lines of communication open.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christy and Sarah. Appreciate it. All right. Next up, we have the small but mighty OPA. Vince, all yours.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys. And Christy, that was a great job. You're welcome to the elementary game. It's a fun one. It's great to hear those stories about the playground. Thank you, directors, for taking the time to listen to us tonight. The OPA story of improvement is one that is captured in a couple of terms. That would be operationalized, systemic, and collaboration. So I wanted to start tonight off by sharing with you kind of how we arrived at our document and the story of what we're doing to try to improve learning at Olympic Peninsula Academy. And it actually started last winter, and with the Wednesdays that we had, it was a great time for our staff, just as a whole staff, to just connect and read and learn together. And we took we read a couple of books together. We read Dare to Lead, and we also read Habits of the Mind. And then we also took a long ride on the data carousel and really examined who OPA is through not only SBA data, but iReady data, multiple parent surveys, CE data. We just really examined who we really are and tried to take some time to understand what our strengths are through all those different data points and where we needed to improve. And that's where we kind of came across the terms systemic, collaboration, and operationalized. So Tracy, if you could scroll down a couple of pages, please, and I'll let you know when to stop. Go ahead. Keep going. Thank you for doing all this. If you want to, right there. So when we took a look at kind of what's happening, like everyone has expressed already, this is a couple of years older data. One of the things we find is that our students, despite all their challenges in terms of being in school through a pandemic, are still increasing their learning, both in SBA, iReady, and classroom-based assessments. And as of the last SBA assessments in ELA, our students were performing at above the state average in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th grade in ELA. And in math, we're seeing improvements across the board, and that included grades 4th, 6th, 7th, and in 8th grade. And Tracy, can you keep going down for a little bit, please? One of the data points that's unique to OPA is you'll see there's an asterisk in all those components because of our size, the demographic is less than 10 in many of those areas, but there is a data. Tracy, if you can go to the internal accountability page, please. I wish I had the page number for you, but sorry, I don't. If you can, that one, oh, not that one, keep going. It's further down, sorry. Yes, right there, okay. So this is iReady data over the last 3 years at OPA. And one of the things that's interesting, if you look at the upper right-hand corner, that was last year. And the fall data in the pink there is reading and the blue is math. That's when students were taking this assessment at home. And then we had them on campus in the winter and then on campus again in the springtime. So when we look at this data, so for example, if you look at 2nd grade springtime, that 71% of those students were at or above grade level. Now we'll go back over and we'll look at 3rd graders here this fall. 83% of these students were at or above grade level, which is a that's good to see, our students, despite summertime are still coming back and performing well. You're going up and down the column there. That is how our students were doing just this last fall. There's a couple of zeros you see indicated there are probably telling me that we had some technical difficulties and that data might not be completely accurate right now, because my hunch is that even based on the data from last fall, we had some students that were performing at grade level. If you go to the one above there, or actually just after there, you heard Donna and Christy talk earlier about Acadians data. That's a system we're going to be implementing at OPA as well. The reason why you don't see the data is because we don't have the materials yet. And when I talk about our strengths and challenges, you'll hear why in just a second. So go ahead, Tracy, on the next one. Next one, please. One of the things that you heard Donna allude to, and I'll allude to it as well, is that because OPA is a partnership program and there's a significant level of buy-in with families when you want to be part of our alternative learning community, our kids come to school all the time, and it's rare to have an attendance issue. By the same token, it's also rare to have any kind of significant behavior issues. And so while there are some minor ones that take place, I actually have a super fun time out on the playground. It's a great place to be. I'm currently undefeated at Foursquare, and our kids are having a blast. So that's one of the great things that makes the learning community at OPA feel like a family. Tracy, if you can go to the next couple ones down there, please. And that's what I shared. Keep going. So here I'll talk about, you can hold up maybe to the next previous one, please. Thank you. All of our strengths and our areas of concern had a similar pattern to them. Obviously, our students and our families, and partnering with them in creating a student's education is what makes OPA a wonderful learning community, and flexible scheduling allows us to address students' learning needs. That pattern follows all the way through up to our high school kids. And one of the things one of our awesome high school staff members does, that's Kim Glasser, is connect really well with the high school team and create a flexible individual schedules, because nearly all of our high school students are shared with Scrim High School. In terms of what came to us as we examined all of our data in terms of things that we were concerned about, was that we needed to develop a systemic progress monitoring system. We didn't necessarily have that both in ELA and math. And so you'll see that come out in our goals, and also implement common assessments. And one of the things that came out of reading Habits of the Mind is we didn't have a systemic SEL approach. And so that turned into one of our goals. And kind of an overarching theme that I learned about as I kind of become a member of this learning community, learn the history of OPA, was access to curriculum for OPA staff and for professional development has been a challenge for them in the past. Since Dr. Prine's arrival, I'm really happy to report that we're getting access to all the district adopted curriculum and participating fully in all the professional development opportunities for OPA. And I wish now that I wouldn't have put none in terms of the barriers to success. There is no doubt that our facility certainly inhibits our ability, whether it's no heat in our gym, whether it's the fact that we have more rodent traps than we have staff members on campus. That is a glaring kind of a challenge that is hard for us to deal with. And I know every building has facility issues, but it's particularly hits home at OPA. Go ahead, Tracy, if you could scroll down, please. Keep going. Okay, so now I want to talk about our 3 goals. And our first goal is a language arts goal, but it's also connected to MTSS. And that's to develop and implement a systemic K-5 literacy approach, which includes, that should say, progress monitoring, not program monitoring, and support systems. This goal is already kind of kicked off and in progress. One of the things that we were able to do is we connected with Gray Wolf, with Donna, and with Krista Chatters, and we took our elementary team over there and really kind of got a full perspective and a full understanding of all the data implications and testing implications in terms of K-5 literacy. And we got a training in Acadians. And one of the things we were able to develop at the October 1st Professional Development Day was an assessment calendar. So now we have a draft assessment calendar. And as soon as we get all the Acadians materials, which we're working with the Teaching and Learning Office to get those materials, we'll be able to implement our assessment calendar. And with that process, we'll be able to actually identify students in the progress monitoring system that need to have support. And so we'll be able to actually provide tier 2 services with our lab staff member utilizing the Acadians data within monthly progress monitoring opportunities for the kids. So we're really excited about this. Okay, Tracy, next goal. Our next goal started off as just a math goal, but once again, a product of our October 1st professional development dialogue, it turned into this much, much larger goal. This goal is we want to develop and implement academic or tier 2 vocabulary acquisition strategies for math, social studies, science, language arts, and it's also a universal design for learning goal. And kind of how this came about was we had a conversation initially, this started out as just math, but then lots of staff members in our collaboration were talking about it. And one of the things that's a unique challenge to OPA is that we're a K-12 system that addresses all of the subject matters. How do we, lift one goal that's connected with all of us? And so this staff member said, why don't we just expand this to all the content areas and then connect it to our student growth goals in our evaluation process. So we're really excited about having this just raise all of our dialogue with each other in terms of being able to connect, whether it's a kindergarten teacher with a US history teacher at the high school level. We're all kind of rowing the same direction. The PD has already started with this. We connected with Casey Lanning and Becky Stanton. We had some language acquisition professional development started before school. We're working to identify those terms and working with that team again on how we would assess those terms, and connecting it to staff student growth goals just connects all the dots in terms of how we have to improve. And this will be a really exciting goal for OPA. Okay, Tracy, next one. Our next goal stems from our both reading of the Dare to Lead and Habits of the Mind. When we started to talk about how to address social emotional learning, we had every individual teacher in the building worked tirelessly to help students acquire the social emotional learning skills that they need to be successful, but there wasn't a systemic approach. And so one of the things we're looking to do is to develop a systemic approach. The staff has looked at Character Strong. They're really excited about that as a potential curriculum for us to utilize. And we hope to recommend something here shortly so that we'll be able to utilize that curriculum to address the culture and MTSS at OPA. And our last goal is one of the things, if you've heard this shared before, that makes OPA unique. It's the P also stands for partnership. And so our families are connected with us. They're dying for the campus to be open again because they're an integral part of what makes us a unique learning community. And so we're going to continue to refine and grow our parent partnership as measured by the CEE data. And you heard the others talk about the Panorama surveys. We currently still have monthly PTO events and monthly meetings that take place and all kinds of different fundraising opportunities for kids. One of the things, an additional goal we're looking to do is increase the written feedback on our written student learning plans with families. We do this by providing folks additional steps in our newsletters, and we're going to be planning a Zoom session to help engage families more in how they can do that electronic feedback process. And that's a little bit about how we're going to be doing our lap services. One of the things that's really cool, if you ever get a chance to come on Enrichment Day, Enrichment Days, you get everything from guitar lessons to pottery to CAD lessons taking place. It really is what makes OPA a special place. And I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Vince, for that, and and you and the team over there. And it's just such a special program, and always a lot of great accomplishments out there. And we just thank you, you and the team, for all you're doing. And Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just will say that I think one of the physician's assistants that I see has a child in the program, and he and I have had some really good talks about just how important that the OPA program has been for his child. And I think that it's just fantastic. I know you got challenges over there from facilities to, other needs. Sometimes in the past, I've gotten the feeling that OPA had been overlooked a little bit. I know I spent some time in a alternative high school teaching science, and sometimes it's tough to get the things you need. So let us know. I'm not going to try to take any of Brian's thunder, but let us know. And I really appreciate you using the data and the surveys and so on and so forth. And your PTO is exciting, and they do a fantastic job. I know it's a small group of parents, but more power to them. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, I'd double that as well. I've always just been so impressed and intrigued by the OPA parents, and just the support there. God help me if I ever find myself on the wrong side of an issue with them, and I mean that with all due respect. That it's such a dynamic program, and we've had such incredible students come through there. The facility thing is heard loud and clear, and I totally agree with you. And Principal Riccobeni, our long-term plans as a district that we've talked about and building out facilities. We've got a beautiful template in terms of space available for the next the construction of the next facility. So anything, again, sorry to be repetitive and cheap with my question, but it is sincere. And that's why I love these SIP presentations is, any gaps that you want the board to be aware of, whether it's aspirational or maybe coming down the pike. We had a district employee and parent reach out to the board this past week talking about the, I'm gonna mess up the acronym, ESRI perhaps, but a lot of funding coming down the pike and how we want to apply that. And so I keep that in the back of my mind as I listen to these SIPs and think about opportunity gaps and everything else on these programs that you and your colleagues administer. So would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that, like the others have shared before, the certainly, the mental health issue in terms of what's taken place over the last, 18 months is a common pattern for all of us. As we continue to, as the district continues to support, OPA with, curriculum and other professional development opportunities, that's been significant as well. And then I'm familiar with the long-term plans in terms of our facility, but I'll certainly think more deeply about, what that can be and share that information with Dr. Prine.
Sounds great. And if we ever need to get the school board out on the Foursquare courts, it's been years since I've played.
Good luck.
All right, Aaron.
Brian stole my reference. I was going to say something about Foursquare too, but no, just appreciate the hard work, and thank you very much. And please share our appreciation with the staff as well.
We will. Thank you.
I'm muting. I'm talking away and I'm muted. Thanks again, Vince. We appreciate it. Okay. Moving on, I think we have our middle school up next.
You do. You have us up next, and we're going to change things up a little bit in terms of the way we might present this. Big part of that is because, frankly, our data is outdated and it doesn't really drive everything we think about. So we wanted to start out with a little different twist in the way we presented this. We're going to start out with, what are the strengths of what we've got here that are in place? So first of all, I don't know if you have kids here at the middle school, but if you got to see our crazy startup as we handed out one-to-one devices to every kid as they came in to collect their schedules and get their school pictures taken. And the staff here has done an amazing job of trying to do their best to start one-to-one in the middle of COVID. Some school districts take an entire year preparing for transferring from the only brick and mortar and pencil paper setting to the one-to-one devices. So, kudos to that group. Also in this place where this staff has kind of wrapped their heads around basically a mindset to try to transform and take advantage of the COVID opportunity and transform the educational experience on behalf of our students. So we paid attention to things during the COVID partial year last year. And as part of what we were doing already is we were looking for SEL interventions. So one of those pieces that came from that is a need for a broader spectrum of kids to get an experience. So we started up a success class last year, and we've carried that through to this year. I'll let Ms. Ward speak to that in a second here, but the other one that we shifted since maybe we talked specifically about it is we asked the district to start looking at us in terms of materials and instructional conversations as the start of secondary. So we want to always be included with the high school as part of the journey that kids start to take as they leave that elementary setting and come to this secondary model where they no longer have 1 or 2 teachers, but they have 6 every year. That's a completely different way of thinking about how to do school and how to do learning. So let Ms. Ward tell you about some of our adaptations.
So our strength that Mark talked about was success. It started as a small group 2 years ago, and it started as groups, and we just saw how much students were benefiting in our tier 2 groupings. And so with that class, we continued it on this year. Now we have 2 sections of 6th grade to get them started into the middle school for some of those kiddos that were struggling at the end of 5th grade. And then we moved on to, we have 7th and 8th. And then next semester, we'll have 2 sections of 8th grade to make sure to capture those kiddos that maybe are struggling a little bit, that need just a little bit extra help to get set for high school transition. And our success class, we do also have a success 2. So we have right now 8 kids. We piloted our kids that were still continuing to struggle. They would have rose to a tier 3 status. And so it's not just for behaviors, it's also for maybe absences in school or just different things that they had going on. And so we have had a lot of success with that success 2 class, and we're looking at that for next semester also. And then we added on this year, we added on instead of having just a ISS or a solution center, which we previously kind of referred to as our ejection zone, because kids wanted to like get ejected from class because they liked it so much, because we had a wonderful para that was running it. She actually moved into success where she is really beneficial in there. And we got Pam Armstrong from Helen Haller, who is got a degree in behavioral sciences and is really great with restorative practices. So for some of our more challenging kiddos, instead of just going to ISS and doing homework, we actually go through a whole restorative process. And then any students that are having problems in school, instead of just looking at it from a discipline lens, we're looking at it from a restorative lens. I'll hit you back, Mark.
Okay, I'm going to kind of speed us up, Candace, because we both kind of talk a lot because we love this age group and our staff and our kids. So some of our barriers we're running into here, obviously, and I'd let Candace talk to this, but I know we need to speed up. So that is obviously COVID. It's still going on, and it's changing the way we do things. We still lack enough human beings to supervise all the things we think need to be supervised. We're seeing some of the same behaviors during our kids' lunch breaks that the elementary sees at recess time period. We're still limited on substitution or substitutes that are available. At this point, I don't know if Candace has done it, but I've covered for classes just because we lacked human beings to cover those classes more than a couple of days so far. We also are still running 2 lunches. We're not doing the elementary model where they're all in the same place, and we don't have quite the kids grown up enough to let them kind of go where they want to go as the high school does. So we have a little more control, but that means we have to use one of our gymnasiums as a cafeteria. So that is making a challenge on a variety of fronts. The other one is really the relevant data. Now, if you would go there, Trace, jump to page 3, you can look at our performance for 6th grade. And our kids, like as was pointed out at Gray Wolf, our kids here in SQUIM do better than the rest of the state average. We do a pretty good job. Larry, as you pointed out, yes, we've had declining numbers in terms of how much better we do in some cases, but that's not the only place. Go ahead and jump through 7. That's number 4. I beg your pardon. Page 4. I'm sorry, Tracy, I messed you up. That's actually grade 7. You would see the same sorts of patterns you saw in grade 6, but I'd like to look on page 5 as we get to grade 8. Because even though these children that this data is about, they are now freshmen at the high school, it still informed us. And I'd like you to look at one particular area, and that would be to look at math. That's the top level, and it is level 4. And you'll notice Sequim School District falls below the state average. We didn't do that at any point until that point in time. So we went into the disaggregation kind of world, and we went to page 7 and started to break that up. Yes, Tracy, if you jump there. And here we started to see some of the same patterns. We outperformed the state on its averages for just about any disaggregate group you want to deal with. This is the 6th grade. Move to page 8, Tracy. We do the same when it comes to grade 8 and 7, but when we get to grade 8, and this was one that even as I reminded Ms. Ward today, it's a bit of a shocker. Could you go to page 9? And that is, would you please look at the math section and look at the females in that SBA year 2019. They got hammered compared to their male peers and compared to the rest of the state. I don't mean to chuckle because there is no light, but it definitively kind of drove some of the conversations we had. We knew about these results previously. So I tell you, this is one of the things that motivated us to definitely want to connect with the high school and do the same math curriculum. We had a teacher who's been an integral part of that. It also meant that we prompted our math teachers on what do we do different? How do we do things a different way? Because we're clearly not impacting the girls as we get to the more complex math. And it led one of our teachers to connect with ESD and start to try and look at the different ideas that they might be implementing. And 3 of our math teachers joined me this summer, and we went to Stanford online to take how math teachers should teach or should teach mathematics to kids. And it looks at it from a mathematician's perspective, not a math teacher's perspective. So that was different. As we move down the other pieces for us, we've also got, as we go with data, you don't see it here, but one of the things we've implemented this year that we weren't necessarily as good at when we first got here was after every professional development, we go after staff feedback on exactly what they want more of, what they want less of, and whether we use the time effectively. That helped us get to a point in conversation that we have not yet confirmed is going to be one of our goals, but we start to establish who we are, who our values, what our values are, and what our objectives or goals are at the middle school within the framework that is the school district. Once we started that in August, then we sat down together with the district, and now we're starting to have conversations about what those things look like at a district level. So that we may have to rework those objectives once we understand what the district's goals or objectives are. So we'll see where that goes. On the DEIB front, a couple things we got going. We've decided to include all kids. We have taken the kids who have been in self-contained special education classes or pull-out programs, and we've all but eliminated those. And just about every kid is in a general education class. We have several of us on staff who have children with disabilities, and it was hurting our heart every year to see those kids separated out. And if you were to talk to the paras who work with those kids one-to-one, those folks come with joy in their hearts this year as they get to watch those kids interact with their peers, in some cases for the first time. We had some kids who have never spoken, and they have reported to us that those kids have actually said thank you to teachers and their classmates. Our para was in tears practically as she shared that story. Since that first story, we've had numbers since that point as to this as being the right direction for us. The staff here dove in on UDL early, and they're still working on trying to come up with ways to learn and to present learning and let kids start to drive the way they produce and the way they work. So it is definitely moving towards a kid-centered educational experience here. We introduced a piece on the SEL front. While we, like everybody else, is eager for the panorama data because we think that's going to help us set some goals specifically. We went after a program called Advocate, where our kids in the morning jump on a very short survey electronically, and that electronic survey sends information to Ms. Ward or to our counselors, but only if a child needs it. And Ms. Ward, keep talking because we're got to go fast. She could tell you she hasn't had lots of critical things that have arisen through that, but the teachers have referred to the fact that just because the kids know that they have a place to ask for help has helped kids. So we were pleased that that has worked out as well as it has. We started wolf packs up again this year. Thank goodness. I've got a wonderful group of 6th graders. we are using Habitudes as our piece. It's around SEL learning. So that's one piece. And we have decided we are reading a book together. Our entire school is reading the same book via audio, and the author is reading the story to our kids. And then after each chapter, we're taking the prompts from what happens in the chapter to try and map out the new rules for life. It's actually called Wolfpack, and it targets adolescent readers. So hopefully we'll get some fun from that part. We haven't finished the data part, as you can see with the information you're seeing today. But when we do, our office team is part of the conversation. We worked with our whole staff to decide on what we needed to do and what we needed to wait to do. And we've got a small teacher group that we meet with actually tomorrow to continue the process of moving forward. And this year we implemented a group of students that participated with Dr. Prine and her work on the DEIB work. But these students are also part of our team to look at our goals and objectives and things that we do here in our school. And those, from this point, if you were going to ask questions about them, those are the Timberwolf Howlers. That's as fast as I can go. Sorry, it took so long.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Mark. It's tough we get with this 10-minute time span here with getting everybody in. Just appreciate again all the work. I really appreciate your kind of statement there on the struggles with COVID and staffing and substitutes and all. And you know, we definitely hear that. I know it's a tough issue across the state as well, but it has really definitely impacted. As like you said, you know, you're stepping in the classroom if you have to, and you know that's admirable and appreciate that. But you know, just goes to show that you and your team are doing whatever it takes to get the work done. But I'll pass it on to my other directors here. Director Koo, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. And again, full disclosure, I've had the benefit of seeing the grit and drive of middle school staff firsthand. And I do have to confess, I was one of the parents who does not know the proper way to drop off my students. So I pulled into the parking lot and I hid my face and I let my FTE, you know, quietly run inside. But if you saw me, that's my mea culpa. That was 100% me, and I apologize. I'm getting it figured out.
All right, so we don't have to keep track of the license plate anymore. Okay.
Right, exactly. You know where to send the fine or the demerit.
Sure.
No, just certainly appreciate everything y'all are doing and in the dynamic. You said it best, is just as our students are you know, migrating from a single teacher environment to where they have 6+ teachers. That just adds to the complexity of this COVID environment, you know, with our teachers and our students. So I'm just saying that as a parent primarily is my gratitude to you and your entire team.
Well, Brian, we haven't forgotten that they were 4th graders the last time they were all together in school, and they missed a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and y'all are seeing it, and that's what I'm hearing. That's
Absolutely.
what I'm hearing. Yep. So yeah, same question. I'm sorry to be, you know, cheap and keep repeating myself tonight, but I love these SIPs. I love hearing about the culture and the work that y'all are doing in each of our buildings. You know, what are those gaps you want us to be aware of? You know, if we had to focus energy, attention,
sure,
potentially funding, although I continue to say, as Jane squirms in her seat, you know, we don't direct the purse strings, but we certainly do have some degree of influence.
Sure. Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily purse strings, but I think that we're starting to peel the onion of our inequity. I think that that's going to be hard work ahead of us. I think we've got some systems that were built out of the best of intentions all the way around, but haven't had that sharp lens focused on them. And so I think there's some assumptive components around how much access all of our kids have to all of our programs. It isn't universal. I think we've got to figure those pieces out. I also think that we've still got to figure out what we can do around the kids who are in trauma. We still have a ton of kids every day who walk through the door, and we don't have a concrete action for that kid to help move them out of that fight or flight mentality to get them to a place where they can truly learn. So a lot of times they're just coping day to day. So as those opportunities or ideas come forward, as you hear about them or you hear Jane find out, please jump on board with those, because I think at every level we would all benefit from those kinds of conversations. I don't want to leave to say that we haven't done some work on the equity front. I think one of the things I found when I came to this community I thought was just amazing and awesome and still holds true today is the fact that the district puts on a materials fair. And it doesn't matter whether you have 2 cents or $2 million to rub together, everybody is welcome to come and collect materials for their child to do school. And I think that how we play that out across all of the services and things that we offer for kids so that it truly is a free public education wherever and whenever possible. So there isn't any stigma related to who you were born to and what your circumstances happen to be today.
And y'all are speaking my language, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And I applaud you too for, and I know it was not easy, the 1-to-1 ratio for each student. Great work on that.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, there's more of a personal level. I mean, intellectually and research, I know how important pre-K to 4th grade, 5th grade is to develop the reading skills and the mathematical computations. And if we can get them above grade level or above, that makes all their learning ahead very important. So I can't overemphasize the importance of K-12 to 5. I was a high school biology and chemistry teacher, and I loved it. I'm still, actually, I downloaded and started reading the AP Bio book again, just to try to catch up on all that's going on. And I really liked teaching and coaching kids at that level. I also spent many years as a middle school science teacher and coach. That is a very unique and extremely important time in those kids' lives. It takes a huge amount of energy. And sometimes I look back and wonder how I got it. I'll tell you, I fed off the kids in the classroom. On a side, I found I had to stay one step ahead of them or I'd get trampled. And I had lab partners in life science class sitting there, both of them, 12, 13 years old, one of them in the body of a 10-year-old and one of them in the body of a 16-year-old. It's that kind of, I'm just trying to say my heart is with the middle school. My hats are off to all you and everything that you have to do. It is a tremendously unique time of their life and very, very, very important in their development for their future life. So hats off to you for what you guys are doing over there.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark and Candace. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and lastly, we have Principal Langston and Assistant Principal Fox from the high school.
All righty, thank you, sir. I'm going to actually start my timer because we could talk forever. I don't think my camera's working, is it? I don't see myself on there.
Yeah, we got you, Sean.
That's all right. It's probably better that way.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to kind of talk about the process. Okay, great, thanks. I want to talk about the process that we went through in developing our CSIP this year. Then we're going to talk about, we're going to look at some data, but I really appreciate what Mark said just before at the beginning of his, in the sense that the data that we're looking at right now, that we're really spending some time really diving into, is so old that literally the kids aren't even at our school anymore because we haven't taken an SBA in the last 2 years. We're in the fall window right now. We are not able to get all of our results. So our next presentation, as one of you talked about later, we'll be sharing kind of some updated stuff. But it's difficult to look at the data that's so old and have it be meaningful to making decisions. So I really want to focus on what we're doing this year, and I'm really excited about kind of the direction we're going to hit the needs of our kids in this pandemic. So first off, each department created their own. They had 2 goals basically this year. One was a belonging goal, because that was our our theme from the district's perspective. And then it was a continuation of the UDL work they started last year. And then our ELA department developed our reading and writing goals, and our math department obviously did our math goals, and I'll talk about those. But what I really want to get to are the two kind of SEL academic homeroom intervention classes that we are starting this year that we're pretty excited about. So Tracy, if you could scroll down a couple of slides. Donna was the smartest one that actually had all the page numbers and was right on it there. One more, I think it's the one that has all four or all three of the SBAs. And what you're going to see, I think it's that one right there is good, Tracy. Kind of what Donna said and what other people have talked about. SQUIM usually is above the state average, and we are as well. But one area that is a challenge for us is math. We don't want to try and sugarcoat anything. That's the only one that we are below the state average. We're below by about 1.5 percentage points or so. But the interesting thing is, and I know Larry talked about this earlier in one of, I think after Donna's, the interesting thing is over the last 5 years, prior to, because it's 2 years ago that we took this test, our math scores have increased every single year. So what we're excited about, and what I'll talk about when I get to the math SIP, is the adoption of a new curriculum in math, and like Mark mentioned as well. Our math teachers are excited, and I'll share a couple of stories about that when we get down there a little bit further. One of the things that we really focus on are graduation rates at our place. And I do want to show one before before Aaron starts going. So Tracy, if you go down to the disaggregated one, I think it is one more maybe. And what you're going to see when she gets there is an area that we knew, what you're going to see when she gets to all those is an area that we have been aware of for a while, and that's really our special education scores. That is one area that we continually are performing below the state average. And what I'm excited about is that, I don't know if you'll remember, but probably 3 years ago maybe 2 years ago when we presented our SIP there, that's fine, Tracy, you're okay, it's right there. The SIP from about 3 years ago was a major focus on the delivery model in our special education programs. And so right now we have our gen ed teachers teaching our special education students with support from their case managers. So we have experts in the field teaching them math and language arts. So we're pretty excited to see the scores and the results of that as we kind of move forward. And then Aaron's going to jump in and talk about grad rates a bit. So go ahead there, Ms. Fox.
All right, so on page 10, you'll see our graduation rates. How these are calculated, so these are our current students, our current sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So a sophomore who's on track has 6 credits, a junior who is on track has 12, and a senior who is on track has 18. This year we've added a homeroom. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have a block schedule, and on each of those days we do homeroom, which will result in a half credit a year for students. So we actually, for our seniors, said if they had 17.5 credits, then we're going to consider them on track. Important to note that we did get quite a few new students this year, and about 20 of those students didn't have records available yet. Denise Kettle, when she enrolls them, requests records, and that process can sometimes take some time to get everything she needs from other schools. So some of this data is a little lower because those students are in here but are showing no data. So when you look at these, again, this is based just on credits, and our 9th grade on-track data, so this is our sophomores, this is where they ended at the end of last year, it did consider summer school, are significantly lower than they have been in the past. Generally, we're in the high 60s, low to mid 70s with our 9th grade on-track data. So this is something we expected after last year with many of our students receiving incompletes, and how we're addressing that is through our homerooms, and also by addressing those incompletes directly. The state is allowing us to continue to work on those incompletes up through and when students graduate from high school. Like I mentioned, we do have some ability to earn extra credits, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those homerooms when we get to our SEL and MTSS goals.
All right, thanks, Aaron. We're going to speed up here, about halfway done. Some strengths and barriers I want to talk about. and then they'll be reflected in the SIP. Number one is in ELA and math, both are in curriculum adoptions in both of those areas, in training with our staff. And they're very, very excited about kind of the some cohesiveness, and our social studies department is going through an adoption right now. So massive thank you to Dr. Prine for leading that charge of kind of updating some of the curricular areas in our school. And probably the biggest strength is going to be what we're going to talk about when we go to our homeroom and our early academic interventions that we're doing right now already. Some barriers that we're finding, and Aaron touched on it, are the number of incompletes. It was a very challenging last 2 years academically for our kids to be virtual or to be on a hybrid model in some of our tougher content areas. So we're cleaning up a lot of that through our work this year. And probably one of the other biggest barriers was the curricular area of having some diagnostic tools that could inform some instructional strategies for our staff that we are able to do now. So that leads me to the ELA goal. So if you want to start scrolling down, Tracy, to our ELA goal, I can just start talking about it while you head that direction. It has to do with basically their adoption process through both reading and writing now have diagnostic tools. And the one in reading is called SAVIS. So basically what it does is it identifies strengths and weaknesses for kids individually, kind of like an iReady test would. And then we are dedicating time for our kids to build those strengths and weaknesses in the area of reading. And then in writing, it's called Quill, and it's basically a grammatical program that again identifies strengths and weaknesses of kids, and then our teachers are dedicating time to have kids work on those skills. That's in a nutshell what they're doing in language arts. If you go down to the next one, our math folks, and Aaron talked about it, one of the big determining factors when you get to a high school is on-time graduation rates for our ninth graders. That's a good indication of if kids are going to be successful or not. And our math one, they're really spending their a concerted effort this year looking at ninth grade students and trying to increase the number of ninth grade students that are going to be on track to graduate through the math, because math is one of those gateway classes that really sets up either for success or challenges for kids as they move along. Okay, so now to get to the fun ones, the homeroom one, I'm looking right now. Aaron, we have, oh, geez, we got like 3 minutes, dang it. Okay, so I'll go real quick on mine. So on Wednesdays, Aaron talked about it. We are doing homeroom now. It's a half an hour on Wednesday and a half an hour on Thursday. Wednesdays is solely dedicated to SEL, and we have adopted Character Strong, which is a nationally recognized curriculum. Vinny had talked about it earlier. We're very excited about it. It basically has 3 missions: to build community, to create a sense of belonging, and to find another trusted adult at Swim High School that kids can get to know and lean on. So, and as one of the things I want to make sure we are aware of, we will be granting credit for our homeroom classes at the end of each year. So that's a quick shot. And then I will say, you heard it mentioned before, there's an SEL component panorama that we will be testing our kids multiple times throughout the year to check on their well-being. So that's the SEL one. Go ahead, Aaron. You got like 30 seconds. You can do it.
All right. So the next one is our academic homeroom. This occurs every Thursday. During this, most Thursdays, 3 out of the 4 each month are spent during academic travel. So classroom teachers can request students that may be off track in their classrooms for those students to travel to the classroom teachers. Students that are on track can take advantage of some different opportunities like playing games in the gym or going to the library. Along with that, we also do monthly grade checks. And this is where we're going to be doing our high school and beyond work. The high school and beyond plan is a required component of graduation. It's required to be an electronic plan. We used homeroom school data solutions. All our students are using that to create their high school and beyond plan. An important part of that is also recognizing what their graduation pathway is. So this is what the state has moved to. Instead of just having students take the opportunity to pass those state exams, the state has opened up several pathways to graduation that include CTE classes, the ASVAB exam, AP classes, SATs, dual credit classes, and the Bridge to College classes. So really important that the students get the opportunity to deep dive in that and get those graduation components complete.
And we're 20 seconds over. I will end by saying that one of the things that Dr. Prime wanted us to mention were who was involved in the creation of this work. And I will say everyone, literally our entire staff, by doing their department goals. And then we have some smaller groups you'll see on the signature page there. We have a block homeroom core of teachers and counselors and administrators who have been working on that for the last year. Additionally, we have a building leadership team and our department chairs that are pretty involved in the beginning processes of our CSIP. So that's it. Geez, that goes fast. And it's we went about 45 seconds over. So sorry.
Oh, I think you're good there, Sean. Thank you. Tight
you.
time frame for everybody.
It is. There's a lot of stuff.
Any questions from the board? All right, go ahead, Larry.
This is the danger of having a retired teacher as a school board member. But yeah, the high school, fantastic things that you guys are doing over there. Again, it's a real important, taking a ninth grader to their senior year, there's quite a growth there, quite a change in who those people are. In ninth grade, you're not quite sure who they're going to be or what they're going to be. But by 12th grade, things become a little bit clearer. It was mentioned earlier, I would encourage all the students to get after those scholarship notebooks, scholarships for college, for junior college, for trade schools, and for other kind of training. Very, very important, because if you don't ask for those scholarships, you're sure not going to get them. Plus, just filling those notebooks out, I'm sure, pathways, the career pathways program, careers to graduation, the future, all that, kind of puts it in concrete. So I really appreciate that. And as a former science teacher, I'm really looking forward to the levee repairing, fixing up, and bringing your science labs from the 19th century into the 21st century. I might have exaggerated there a little bit, but I've seen those labs. And as a former track and cross country coach, and I know you got some cross country powers headed for state, go get them. And refinishing that track later on is really important, because I'm a firm believer that athletics and activities are an integral part of the educational system. They're not enhancements, or I think they should be somehow in the prototypical model as essential, because a lot of those kinds of programs bring high school students to school because they're in those programs. So good work, and welcome, Aaron. I know you were there and now you're there in a new role. So congratulations.
Thanks, Larry. I totally appreciate what you just said. Yes, you'd be surprised how many kids just come to school because of the things that you're saying right there. And I do want to mention something along the lines of scholarships. One of the cool things, because the post-secondary schools are seeing a decline in the number of students that even applying for colleges now over the last couple of years because of all the online stuff. And so there's a program called Guaranteed Admissions Program. It's called GAP. And it's with some of our state schools. I think there's about 6 of them. And we applied and are working in conjunction with them. And basically what it means is that our kids, if they meet a certain requirement with a GPA, now have guaranteed admissions to a number of the state schools here. So we're excited for that. And our counselors were kind of the drivers of that. And then I heard you say earlier about pulling the AP Bio book out and reading it again. I'll make sure that I let Laura Gould know that, who's our AP Bio teacher. And she is the most excited one to get a new classroom. And you're right, 18th century is about right.
Ryan.
All right. Well, first I have to apologize for my 2 FTEs in your facility.
Don't, they're awesome.
They get it from their mother. No, we're pretty proud of them. But I think without throwing my son under the bus, but he's looking at life through a 9th grade lens and, doesn't recognize the immediate value of the SEL supports that y'all put in place. And so I'm hopeful that y'all are seeing from your professional vantage point benefits there, because we've heard clearly tonight, and I've personally witnessed it, including with my own ilk, of the challenges associated with, obviously the COVID recovery and getting back to school. So I hope that's been successful. I suspect it has. You know, as a parent and a father and whatever else I am, just observing those challenges that both of you deal with and your respective staff deal with on a daily basis. I could not appreciate your efforts more than I do. So thank you so much. Yeah, I guess the question in there, again, question du jour is, where are those gaps? You know, I know we're looking at a new track coming soon. We're looking at our gym facilities as well. So help me God, Larry's going to have his state-of-the-art Bunsen burners. That's a joke, Larry. I'm just kidding. But no, I agree with I agree with what he's after as well. What are some corners we may be missing or may not have daylight on from a board perspective?
I think the first thing I would say, Brian, is you're right as far as like as we have instituted Character Strong now in that SEL curriculum. It's interesting even talking with the teachers. Some of them are all in, they love it, they can't wait for it. Others of them, it's challenging for them because it's a canned program, but it allows for some vulnerability and it's about building culture, and so it's just a chance to get to know kids on a different level. And I've sat in, I think, 4 or 5 of them now, and I love them. I think they're amazing. It's just another chance for our kids to get to know another adult in a different way that can be kind of that trusted person that they have on our campus. As far as the needs, it wouldn't be a whole lot different than anybody else's that you've heard tonight. I heard mental health, that would be massive for us. But I think the difference for us also is the game changes when you hit 9th grade. Like y'all know, it becomes a credit game. And so with so many kids getting I's the last 2 years, basically trying to clean up that and address that. That's why we created the academic homeroom. One was for an opportunity for kids to gain credit, but also was what they're doing by like the 3rd one, I think. The elementary folks call it walk to reading. We were calling it walk to academic intervention. So each teacher, a math teacher, for example, mostly math folks, will send out 5 or 6 or 7 slips that then the kids will go check into their homeroom, but then they'll go get extra help from that math teacher. And we wanted that early and often. So we're addressing those needs, but it's challenging. As Aaron kind of shed a light on, our graduation rates are really pretty good usually. But they're a little scary right now. And but the saving grace, and we've been kind of trying to think about when you throw the pebble in the pond, what the implications will be. The saving grace is the state's change to basically pathways for kids, many more ways that they can graduate than just passing the SBA and the ELA, SBA, and the math SBA, the science SBA. But what we're seeing is this year, for example, we had a lot of kids in the fall who opted out of the test. That wasn't a problem with us before. All of our kids took it, but when they opt out, they have to indicate which way they're going to meet their graduation requirements. So we have some really smart kids, high-end kids, who are saying, I don't want to test because I'm going to get my SAT score is going to be high enough, and that will meet my pathway. And so those are going to be reflective of our scores potentially down the road, because that's not the sole driver for graduation. So that's a unique thing to the high school, I think, than from what the other people talked about. But yeah, facilities, goodness gracious, and a mental health support would be amazing. So if you're going to get the checkbook out, might as well get a big one.
I'll do my best, and thank you. That was very well said. Resonates
Thanks.
with me big time. And yeah, like I said, I'm looking through my own petri dish of my 2 FTEs in your system right now, and just trying to be cognizant of where those corners might be. I do have to give a shout out to your staff of the proactive nature in which they reach out to parents for attendance gaps. Obviously that's handled at your administrative level, but also assignments missing, things like that. It allows my wife and I to range sulfur appropriately when it's due, and it really helps in our household, and I believe others. So kudos to
it does. And I think the other thing that our system has created this year with the academic piece of the homeroom is kids tracking their own progress, because you and your wife are an extremely supportive family that you're sitting around the dinner table, I'm sure, and having those conversations. Well, a lot of our kids don't have that. So now they've got a trusted adult at least once a month who's sitting down and going through Skyward with them, checking their grades and that kind of stuff. So it's a way for us to systemically kind of deal with all of our kids. So we'll see. we're learning and growing with this thing right now. We're kind of, and I'm going to give a public shout out to Christy Queen, because Christy was the one that kind of was a driver of this last year, was a massive character fan or character strong fan. We've had it for about 3 years in our leadership class, but not school wide. And Christy really pushed this initiative and then jumped ship last year. And so we just kind of picked it up and are continuing on. And I will say also, we are making some alterations on it, because right now, it's challenging because we do a block schedule. So 1, 3, 5 on Wednesday and 2, 4, 6 on Thursday. So one of those days our teachers aren't getting a planning period, and then the other day they get double planning period. But we're altering the schedule when we kick back up again in December to give our teachers a little bit more of a break during those times, and our kids as well. Because all the kids, all they ever want is a longer lunch, and we're actually going to probably be able to do that for them. So anyhow, that's kind of the direction we're heading, and we're learning as we're going here.
All right, Eric.
Yeah, I just want to briefly just say, Sean, Aaron, thank you so much for your work, and please share our appreciation with your staff. The amazing, we appreciate the amazing amount of work. It's obviously a difficult year, probably the most difficult, and we want to make sure and just share that appreciation. And any other all the rest of the principals on the line, if I didn't mention that specifically, please carry that forward, because it doesn't go unnoticed. But Sean, Aaron, thank you very much. I appreciate everything.
Thanks, Eric. I will give you a shout out, just so you know. Our staff, we decided to get staff t-shirts this year, and it says "Create Belonging" on it. And I don't know, there was this girl named Madeline Pickens who designed the staff t-shirts for us. So shout out to you. I told her I was going to get her one too, so she can be a staff member at the high school.
Oh, nice.
We got a couple of them left, I think. So yeah, we enjoy watching her and all her successes too.
Yeah, I don't know where she gets that creative streak, but hey, it's working. So
it benefited us, so we're good.
Yeah, awesome. Wow, thank you.
Right, great. Larry, did you have something else?
Just real quick, one more thing. I'm a big fan of block scheduling. 3 cheers.
Yeah, yes, because you were a science teacher, Larry. That's why our science teachers absolutely love it, because it allows them more time for their experiments and not so much breakdown and setup time. Not all of our folks feel that way right now, though.
Right. Wonderful. Again, thanks, Sean, to all in your team. I think we have 4 FTEs rolling in that school, but 3 of them are rolling out of there at the end of this year. With
I know. Yes, you guys are well represented at the high school. That's for sure.
Yeah. So again, so we all have a firsthand understanding of everything that goes on, and your team has just been amazing with my daughter, with Layla there for the past 4 years, and I just watching her progress through the years. So I just appreciate it.
Yes, I would totally agree, Brandino. I remember when she came as a freshman, she looked a little scared, kind of the deer in the headlights thing. But when I see her walking around campus now, it doesn't look like that anymore.
No, and I took her today to vote for the first time. So drop her ballot off. That was kind of surreal. But anyway, thanks, Sean. Thanks to all your team.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
All right. Next up, we have update from Superintendent Prine.
Yes, well, I won't take too much time. I just want to say thank you to the principals and the assistant principals and all their staff. They have been working tirelessly, and it was evident tonight in their school improvement plans, and very excited to see where they are in February with their progress. So I just want to say thank you. I'm not going to take any more time, because we saw the good work that's going on in our schools. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone.
All right, appreciate that. Okay. Lastly, we have our resolution for WSSDA and for the expenses. So have WSSDA upcoming, and for those in attendance, Director Koo.
Great, thank you, sir. And as somebody who's transitioning off, it's hard not to be sentimental. And I got to admit, I was kind of misting up a little bit. We're talking about Madeline and Layla and everybody else. But this is such an important transition point for our members coming on board. And I know we have 2 candidates in the audience tonight. and we'll find out tomorrow, but I enthusiastically will move to support this resolution as presented for the sake of continuity of our board operations, and just give my strongest endorsement and blessing to those who will participate in this upcoming WSSDA Annual Conference.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Larry. And yes, I'll follow up on that. So we have a motion and a second, and yes, definitely take all you can out of these, especially as new board members. There's a lot of information there. I know walking into it, there were things that I had on my mind before I walked in, and then I attended some of these classes and found out, oh, it don't quite work that way. Or, oh, that's cool, I can do that. Awesome. So anyway, just fully support getting the opportunity to, and to our student representatives as well. There's some great opportunities there for them to grow and learn, and our past reps have done a great job in attending that. So any other further comment before we vote?
Just concur with what's been said.
All right. With that said, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right. Anybody with anything for the good of the order? Larry.
Yeah, just real quick. I hope the newspapers and the people that were here can capture all the pretty amazing things the people in the school district are doing. I think right now the school district is experiencing some slings and arrows, but by and large, there's some pretty amazing things going out there and being done by pretty amazing students and teachers and programs. And we're not perfect. Can we improve? You bet we can. But I think we've got the people in place out there that can make this happen. And just have people keep it in mind that what we're all really about is what are we doing for the kids? How are we making them successful? Are they achieving? Are they becoming lifelong learners? So I think we heard some pretty good things tonight. So I just wanted to emphasize that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Larry. And I'd like to add to that too. One thing that I heard throughout the evening from every presenter is we really appreciate Superintendent Prine's support in this area. And if it wasn't for Superintendent Prine with our guidance or support in some of these different things, these wouldn't have been able to happen. So thank you, Jane, for the work that you've done and your leadership with working with different teams there as well. Really appreciate it. Okay. With that said, it's a late night, but a good night, and it's always good to hear from all of our schools. Kind of tough all in one night in a short period, but a lot of good information. So as Larry said, there's a lot of good going on in the district out there, and we appreciate all that hard work. With that said, we will let everybody get on with the rest of their evening, and I'll call this meeting adjourned. Good night.
Thank you.